And Coach Sampson giving Houston Cougars a perennial NCAA tournament team every single year. There is an awesome buzz throughout the country. I know we are excited for American Hoops coming up.
It's going to be a great morning as we continue to learn about the 12 teams across this conference. We have a whole show in store for you. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to hear from Commissioner Mike Oresco. We're going to talk to coaches and players across the league. And while we want you to stay with us here on Facebook, you can also head over to Twitter at American_Conf and hear from Andy Katz as he hosts 3 different coaches roundtable discussions. But before we get to any of that, practice has begun, the goals have been set, and the predictions are in. Let's take a look at how the coaches voted in this year's preseason poll. With 6 first-place votes, UCF picked to win the league in the 2018-19 season for the first time in the American. That's a group we're going to spend some time taking a close look at today, but they're going to have some serious competition. The reigning champion Cincinnati picked to finish just behind the Knights, Houston at 3, Memphis at number 4 under first-year head coach Penny Hardaway, who we'll hear from a little later on in the show. UConn in that 5th spot, followed by Temple. Then in that bottom half, some names we aren't as used to seeing this low in the poll, SMU and Wichita State. A lot of new faces for both of those teams. And then rounding out the group is Tulsa, Tulane, ECU, and USF. Mike, the first thing that jumps off the page to me is that 4 different teams receive first-place votes. What does that say about the American this season?
Parity, you got to love it. That's what college hoops is all about. I think the big thing, though, for me is you look at UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston. I think that top 3, I think it's the right call. There's 2 teams that I think you say, okay, pick against your own peril. I never like to pick against Wichita State, and Greg Marshall, I know he may not have some of the caliber players from a national perspective, perception that we're used to, but they're going to play angry, they're going to play physical, and they're going to be a really great defensive team. Now, you also talk about Tulsa, too, picked kind of low down the poll. Well, guess what? Every single year since they've joined the American Conference, Frank Haith and Tulsa have exceeded at preseason polls every single year by the end of the season. So Tulsa, Wichita State, 2 teams to watch out for as we move close to late January, early February.
Certainly going to be an exciting season across the American, but UCF, the preseason favorite, and a big reason why is they have the preseason Player of the Year on their side and senior guard BJ Taylor. He has battled injury off and on, but he has certainly proven that he can be a game changer on the court. And there you see it as well, the preseason Rookie of the Year in guard from Houston, Nate Hinton. Mike, let's start off by talking about BJ Taylor. You've spent a lot of time analyzing BJ's game. What makes him the best in this league?
You know, he's not just one of the toughest players to guard in the American Conference. He's one of the toughest players to guard in the country, specifically because of his size, 6'2", 200 pounds. He's fast, but you have to take into account that he can take multiple body hits. He's almost like a heavyweight boxer at the point guard position. His ability to get to the rim, knock down the three-point shot, as well as get to the free throw line. He's so difficult to guard. If he stays healthy, he is a legitimate NBA prospect.
We're going to hear from BJ Taylor a little bit later in the show. Mike had a chance to catch up with BJ last night, but a guard that appears to have a bright future as well is the preseason Rookie of the Year out of Houston, and that's guard Nate Hinton, a 4-star recruit from Gastonia, North Carolina. Mike, what have you heard about the freshman that will suit up for Kelvin Sampson's squad this year?
This was an awesome get for Coach Sampson and Houston. I mean, I think a lot of people felt that Nate Hinton was going to go somewhere else. And, you know, given Houston's NCAA tournament run, what Coach Sampson is building in Houston with a new facility, the way that they're a national power right now, I think it ended up being a really cool decision for Nate Hinton. I mean, he was, like you said, he was a 4-star recruit. He turned down major offers from Michigan, Indiana, Oklahoma State, and he believed in the vision that Coach Sampson was putting into place. He is an electric, big scoring guard coming out of the state of North Carolina, one of the top high school players out of the state of North Carolina.
There's a lot of talent across this conference, and several of those student athletes are starting to make their way into the room now here at the Airport Marriott. But let's take a look at the preseason first team across the American, and a player that was certainly in contention for the preseason Player of the Year honors and the only unanimous first team pick. That's UConn guard Jalen Adams. Joining Jalen on that first team is Cincinnati guard Jaron Cumberland, Memphis guard Jeremiah Martin, Temple guard Quentin Rose, and then Taylor, of course, rounding out that group. Mike, guards. How does the Americans guard play compare to other conferences across the country?
Tops in the country, no question about it. But that's the way that the game of basketball is evolving. I think when you talk about the NBA and how it trickles down into college, you see players like Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry. It's not pounded inside anymore. It's not the dominant big man of the Shaquille O'Neals anymore. It's about guard play. It's about open spacing. It's about getting players in situations and like in ball screens to make defenses think. I think that's why you're seeing so many guards on the first team all-conference, and rightfully so. This is a really, really talented group. You can put them up with any other conference in the country. It's a really good crew.
A guard that we've talked about already is the preseason Player of the Year in B.J. Taylor, but a player that is certainly going to give B.J. a run for his money this year is UConn guard Jalen Adams. Mike, how dangerous is Jalen?
I feel like Jalen Adams has been in a UConn uniform forever. It seems like he's been a staple in stores, but he's obviously one of the top players, not just in the conference, but in the country. And that's what Coach Hurley wants him to be. He wants Jalen Adams to be known as one of the top guards in the nation. Had 18 points per game last year, logged really heavy minutes, 38 minutes per game, most in the conference. That probably won't happen this year. UConn's got a lot of new talent, but expect Jalen Adams to have a monster year.
For Cincinnati, picked to finish second in the league this year, and boy, do they have some big shoes to fill. But Jaron Cumberland is certainly going to have to play a big role. What does Jaron have to do to keep the Bearcats playing the level of basketball that we're used to seeing?
Well, he's got to step up and be the guy. You know, he has to be the scorer for Cincinnati right now. He played second fiddle to guys like Kyle Washington, Gary Clark, Jacob Evans for Cincinnati last year, but he has the ability to give you 20. He's a really underrated three-point shooter. We know how strong he is. He plays physical. He loves to get his teammates involved. He's got kind of that herky-jerky shot a little bit, but he's very efficient. And I think Coach Cronin needs him to be around that 16 to 17 points per game at a minimum for Cincinnati to be at the level they want to be at.
The talk in Memphis right now is all Penny Hardaway, but his guard, Jeremiah Martin. Mike, how electric is Jeremiah?
Well, first of all, it's great for Coach Hardaway to come into a situation, given the fact you have a player like Jeremiah Martin, who can be a potential Player of the Year in the conference, because of the fact I think he's the best two-way player in the American Conference. What I mean by that is we know he can score 18 points per game. He was second in the American Conference in scoring, but he's also a great defender. He was top 5 in steals per game in the American Conference, a lock-up perimeter defender, which is why I think he is the best two-way player in the American Conference. Going to be a great player for Coach Hardaway.
Temple picked to finish 6th, a spot the Owls have become pretty familiar with here in the preseason, but they have guard Quentin Rose on their side. How can Rose help the Owls have a better finish in the American this season?
6'8", silky smooth. I love Quentin Rose's game. He never feels like he's out of control. He never feels rushed. He just knows how to play. And I love the fact that he can knock down a three-point shot with ease. He's one of the best three-point shooters, not just on Temple, but in the American Conference. And I love the fact that he can back down smaller guards and get to the rim. That makes him really dangerous. As a junior, Quentin Rose is on the cusp of stardom.
Of course, B.J. Taylor from UCF rounding out that first team, but let's give you a look at the preseason American second team. Out of Houston, Mike, guard Corey Davis Jr. He loses his buddy there in the backcourt, Rob Gray, but what does Corey Davis Jr. have to do to keep Houston moving in that right direction this year?
I think people forget, because Rob Gray Jr. was so good. He was easily one of the best scorers in the country. Corey Davis Jr. averaged 15 points a game last year, and you can expect that number to go up. He's a highly efficient offensive player. He's their top returning scorer from a very good Houston team, and he had a streak last year of 29 straight games of hitting a three-pointer. He is a lights-out three-point shooter.
Also on that second team is UCF center Taco Fall. We saw Taco and the rest of the team walking around here last night. How vital is Taco going to be to UCF this season?
you really would like him to take that next step in his game, which is on the offensive end. Really, honestly, there's not much more he can do defensively to be better. He's one of the top shot blockers in the country. He makes teams shoot shots that they don't practice, which is why UCF's defensive field goal percentage is so tough. It's so difficult to play against. But Taco Fall's offensive game, if he can step out, maybe make a 10, 12, 15-foot jumper, I would like him to get to the free throw line more. He's a better free throw shooter than people give him credit for, but he's easily a 15-point, 10-rebound, 6-block a night type of player. He's dominant. He makes UCF so difficult to play against.
How do teams prepare to play a player like Taco Fall?
A little bit of a hope and a prayer, right?
How do you simulate that in practice?
You can't. You need a broomstick. When on the defensive end, you have to add an extra player. Really to play against Taco Fall, it's not about what you're going to do. It's what can you take Taco away from. You need to put him in uncomfortable situations. And I think when teams will want to put him in ball screen scenarios, but the problem is UCF is so good defensively, not just with Taco Fall, that they know how to guard those scenarios, and they can switch almost every single position except for Taco Fall. That's what really makes them tough.
Of course, one of the keys this season for UCF is going to be staying healthy, and we're going to break down the Knights as the show rolls on. But moving on to SMU, a team picked to finish in the bottom half of the league, but they have two second-team preseason all-conference selections in Jure Foster and Jamal McMurray. Now, Jure Foster is the only SMU player to have more than 1 year of experience playing at SMU. How important is his veteran leadership going to be?
Oh, it's huge, but I think Jure Foster's a pro. I think he's a phenomenal athlete. He might be the best athlete in the American Conference, and had an injury last year, took him out for most of the year. He's back healthy, fresh. I loved his game in that small kind of a chunk of games that we saw from him last year. He's a pro. I really believe that. I think he is your prototypical 3-and-D type player in the NBA, but his veteran leadership, like you said, very important. And then you look at another player for SMU, Jamal McMurray, who can absolutely light it up. A streaky shooter, but shot over 40% from the three-point line. He's a guy that if you blink, he gets hot, he can give you 25 a night. He is that good. He is that efficient of a scorer when he gets in a rhythm.
SMU needing to replace Shake Milton, who left the Mustangs for the NBA draft. Which of these players do you expect to sort of step into Shake's role?
Has to be a tandem. When you replace a player like Shake Milton, it never comes with one guy. Very rarely for any team does that happen when you try to replace an NBA draft pick. But it'll come in tandem between Jure Foster, between Jamal McMurray, and then another player for SMU, Jimmy Witt, who we'll probably talk more about later. He is a really kind of interesting point guard, long, athletic, can play in multiple positions. But between those three guys, you have a three-headed monster that kind of replaced some of that offensive output that Shake Milton gave you last year.
From Wichita State, their second year in the American, Marcus McDuffie, of course, returned from injury last season. Where do you expect to see McDuffie take the next step in his game this year?
I think people forget, because Wichita State is new in the American Conference, he was up for Player of the Year in the Missouri Valley 2 years ago. He was an absolutely electrifying athlete. He was phenomenal as a freshman at Wichita State. He never really found his groove last year after coming back from a stress fracture. I think with his health, the fact that he's 100%, he's going to have the ball in his hands more. I expect a huge year from Marcus McDuffie. Do not count out McDuffie and the Shockers this year. I'm calling it.
Another team that you're warning people to not count out is Tulsa, and they have Sterling Taplin on their side. What does he bring to the table? Another
one of those players that you feel like has been here forever, right? Sterling Taplin has been a mainstay for the Tulsa Golden Hurricane, and he solidifies exactly what Frank Haith does with Tulsa: overachieve with tough physical prowess. I like his offensive game. He's around 16 points per game. Expect a big year from Taplin as well.
We're going to keep talking about the top players and teams in this league all morning long, but before we continue, let's send it over to the opening remarks that will get Media Day started here in Philadelphia.
3, 2, 1, roll it. There's a difference in performing versus competing. When you're competing, you're going to war. There's a difference in fighting a battle and going to war.
In a game like this, you got to want to win the game. You can't be thinking about next week.
Out of the heavens! I absolutely love this game.
It just says a lot about what our kids are made of.
Buries the triple. On the attack, he scores with the right. For the win. Yes!
Triple for Collins.
Goes inside and puts it up with the left hand, and then
For three.
book it to the rim. Takes it himself. Catch and dunk for Big Taco Fall. Galloping ahead for the layup. Daniels the finish.
Cumberland. And he knocks it through.
All the way to the other end.
The guys know they've gone out, they've given a winning effort every single night. That's all you can ask for.
Welcome everyone to our men's and women's basketball media day. In the morning session, we've got the men's here for the American Conference. It is year 6 of Commissioner Mike Oresco, and as you saw in the video, and I don't have to tell the coaches here below, there is no Power 5, it's a Power 6, and you can go beyond. This league certainly has exceeded all expectations in the 6 years. Mick Cronin's Cincinnati Bearcats have been a perennial national team, number 2 seed last year. Wichita State joined the league last year, and everyone knows that Greg Marshall's teams are consistently a national program, and there's plenty of others, Houston and Kelvin Sampson with their rebirth down in Houston, new arena. There's a lot to be excited about with this conference. New coaches certainly in Memphis and UConn, and Penny Hardaway and Dan Hurley and Joe Dooley at East Carolina, and a lot more going on in this league. And Mike Oresco, the commissioner, here joining us this year after not able to be here last year, but with some remarks on the future here of this season of men's and women's basketball. We'll start with the men's. Mike Oresco.
Thank you, Andy. It is good to be back, and pleased again to have you join us here, Philadelphia. You've become a good friend of the American. You do a great job. You're one of the best basketball commentators, and we appreciate your insights. We're delighted to have you as the MC today. A warm welcome to all of you. We're excited to be back at the Philadelphia Airport Marriott for our 2018-19 Men's Basketball Media Day. Great venue and setting for our event, and I'm happy that so many of you can join us again. I'm proud to represent the student athletes, coaches, and administrators from our 12 basketball playing institutions. And I myself could not be more excited for the upcoming basketball season, and I know you are, but also the future of this dynamic conference. We have programs steeped in tradition with long and storied histories, and we have up-and-coming programs. But I love our current trajectory, and I believe we're poised to have great success in the years to come. There's no question about it. Our future is bright, and as you know, Wichita State joined us last year, and they've been a great addition to the conference. We have administrators and coaches who are deeply committed to winning and elevating the profile of our conference nationally. But most important, they're great mentors and teachers for our student athletes, and I'm proud of their association with this league. We welcome 3 new coaches, Joe Dooley at ECU, Dan Hurley at UConn, and Penny Hardaway at Memphis. We have an impressive roster of highly successful coaches. I'm extremely pleased that Joe, Dan, and Penny are now part of our team at the American. They're going to add a great deal. I'm excited to announce that Air Force Reserve will be the title sponsor of our 2019 Men's Basketball Championship in Memphis. We're delighted to have them, and as many of you remember, Memphis was the site of our very successful inaugural men's basketball tournament in 2014, and UConn went on to win, as you know, the national championship. We look forward to returning to that great city again in March. I want to thank our friends from ESPN and CBS Sports who have joined us here today. We appreciate their strong support of our conference and the great relationships we have with them. As you will notice today, many of our student athletes, coaches, and conference staff are wearing green ribbon lapel pins in support of our conference's Student Athlete Advisory Committee's Powerful Minds Initiative. It's also Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and you can see I have my A. But with respect to the initiative I just mentioned, our student athletes want to raise awareness with respect to mental health issues and the resources available to student athletes. And they want to end any stigma related to seeking help. We want to promote success through healthy, powerful minds as well as healthy bodies. I could not be prouder of our American SAC for making the Student Mental Health and Well-Being Initiative their top priority. A note of thanks also to my outstanding staff at the American for putting together this event and for their hard work and dedication on behalf of our membership throughout the year. We're a service organization, and they work very hard to make sure everything goes smoothly. And Nate Pomaday, whom you all know, does a great job overseeing our men's basketball. I would also be remiss if I did not acknowledge one individual in the room today, Temple head coach Fran Dunphy. Fran represents all that is right about college athletics. He's a coach who has distinguished himself with dignity and class, both on and off the court, over a long and remarkable career. A two-time Coach of the Year in our league, Fran also has served as chair to our men's basketball coaches group. His impact has transcended the game of basketball, and countless student athletes over the years owe him a great debt of gratitude, as do we. We wish him the best in his final season at Temple. There's no better individual in the coaching ranks than Fran Dunphy. My thanks again to all of you for being here today. I'd like you to enjoy the opportunities you'll have to meet and speak with our players and coaches. And if there's anything you need during the day, please let us know. And to our student athletes and coaches, a special thanks and best of luck in 2018-19. I'm appreciative of your efforts and how you represent the conference. We have great players, but they're also great students, and they contribute to their communities. I look forward to another exciting season of college basketball in the American, and as I say every year, may we win our share. Thank you.
You heard the commissioner announce the American partnership with the Air Force Reserve for the men's basketball championship. Speaking of which, is headed to Memphis this year. Mike, how electric is that city going to be come March?
It's a restored buzz in Memphis. I mean, if you look at, they averaged just under 5,000 attendees at their basketball games last year, and at their Midnight Madness just a few days ago, they had over 16,000 packed the FedEx Forum. It is an absolute buzz in Memphis with the hire of Coach Penny Hardaway.
I was just in Memphis a couple of weeks ago, and there certainly is a buzz around Penny Hardaway and the Memphis Tigers, especially if the Tigers are winning games in March. That's going to be a one-of-a-kind atmosphere. But the commissioner talked about how he loves the trajectory of this league. If you're Commissioner Mike Oresco, why are you happy with the direction this league is headed in?
Kind of would like to go back to last year, just briefly, with the addition of Wichita State, what Greg Marshall brings to this program. I mean, really, I think in a year or two, it's not inconceivable. In fact, it's probably more probable than anything else that you could have 6 teams in the NCAA tournament come out of the American Conference. I think when you think Cincinnati, Wichita State, Houston, and then the resurgence of Memphis and UConn, then you've got UCF, Temple, Tulsa, who will continue to make a vie for the NCAA tournament. Then you got SMU. That kind of 6 team in there to be consistently in the NCAA tournament is not unheard of. I think you'll see 6 teams in the coming years be consistent coming out of the American Conference.
You mentioned 6 teams being consistent in the coming years coming out of this conference, but let's talk a little bit about this year. Cincinnati, Houston, and Wichita State are coming off NCAA tournament appearances. Mike, out of these teams, in your opinion, who from this group will return?
I think Cincinnati and Houston for sure. Again, I never doubt Wichita State. I don't want to doubt Greg Marshall at all. His teams are always well prepared. But I think Cincinnati is going to be Cincinnati, and it's so easy for us to say that, but it's so hard to do. It's so hard to duplicate. But I think Coach Cronin has that formula of getting kind of underappreciated recruits, slowly morphing them into veteran leaders over the course of time. And I think Cincinnati will be back, as well as Houston. Coach Sampson has that thing rolling in the city of Houston. They have great guard play. They have a really good freshman. I expect Houston to be back in the NCAA tournament as well.
Looking at some teams who missed out last year from the NCAA tournament, Temple, who of course played that incredibly challenging schedule, along with Tulsa, Memphis, and UCF. From this group, who will be dancing come March?
Yeah, I think it's going to be UCF. I think they're too talented. They have one of the best trios, not just in the American Conference, but in the country between B.J. Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins, and Taco Fall. I think UCF, they're a top 25 team, but they're one of those teams that's built for a late March run. If they can stay healthy, you'll hear that phrase a lot. But I really like this UCF team because of their depth, because of their experience. They can play 10 to 12 guys. They have great guard play as well as great post play. I expect UCF to not just get to the NCAA tournament, but to advance. I think they're a Sweet 16 team this year.
UCF also had a lot of excitement surrounding them last year, but obviously we're plagued by the injury bug. What will be the key for UCF to make it that entire duration of the season?
We'll talk about that injury bug a little bit more on in the show, but I think you're exactly right. If they can stay healthy, that's really the biggest thing. They're going to be a great defensive team. They return all their top defenders back except for A.J. Davis from last year. And I think when you add in Aubrey Dawkins to the mix, you have a couple talented freshmen as well that they're going to be looked upon. But you have players like Cesar DeJesus and Terrell Allen to add to B.J. Taylor. I mean, this is a great offensive team for UCF. Maybe it's something that you haven't seen in the past years. If they're anywhere close to 70 points per game this year, they can beat anybody. They were kind of that team to where they held teams to almost under 60 points per game last year, but they only scored around 63 points per game. So they struggled on the offensive end. They couldn't find a rhythm, couldn't find shots, especially with that departure of Matt Williams, who is one of the most prolific three-point shooters in the country. If they're close to 70 points per game this year on the offensive end, they're still going to hold teams close to 60 points a game. They can beat anybody. This is a really talented group.
Temple's a team that when you look back to last year, their record doesn't exactly blow you away. But when you look at their schedule, it was extremely challenging, and they're going to play a really tough schedule again this year. How does that set the Owls up to head to the NCAA tournament potentially?
Honestly, they were one of the strangest teams in the country last year because in the first 10 games of the year, they were a top 25 team. Their RPI, which RPI, rest in peace, that no longer exists anymore. We'll talk about that later. But Temple had massive wins in the non-conference to start in the first 10 games of the year. They were in the top 10 in the RPI, and they had a top 10 strength of schedule as well. They finished the year with an RPI under 52, but they couldn't find consistency in the American Conference. That's because it was so difficult to win games in the American Conference. They had massive wins in the non-conference year. When they moved over into conference play, they couldn't find their groove. Again, what makes the game of basketball great right now in terms of style of play is you have to have great guards, and Temple has that in Quentin Rose and Shiz Alston. And when you have those two players, their talent level can take them very far. You expect Temple to exceed expectations. They're picked 6th, but at the beginning of the year, if they can grab a couple of those non-conference wins and they play better in the conference season, Temple can be an NCAA tournament team.
Temple with some extra motivation to play for Fran Dunphy in his final season at the helm at Temple. But a team with high expectations, we've talked about them a lot already this morning, both in the regular season and beyond, is the UCF Knights. With the full cast healthy and returning, the sky is the limit.
UCF, the Golden Knights. Amid the magic of Orlando, Florida, a program on the rise. B.J. Taylor. B.J. Taylor. He slashes, he passes. This fierce and fearless fury on the court controls the game for the Knights. Taco Fall, the man in the middle and all the way up. He dunks with a hop, and those blocks just don't stop. The coach, Mr. Johnny, former Naismith winner Dawkins. With his team on the brink of breakout, avoid injuries, and you have the promise and the prospect for a prosperous season, and maybe even a conference crown.
We can't emphasize it enough, but how high are the expectations at UCF this year?
Well, I'm going to say this because I'm going to be the first one to say it before the national media is going to talk about it all the time. If they stay healthy, this is a top 25, potentially top 15 team in the country. They have talent from top to bottom. They have the best trio in the American Conference and one of the best trios in the country in terms of point guard, wing, center in B.J. Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins, Johnny Dawkins' son, and Taco Fall, the man in the middle. They have great experience and depth. They returned 7 of their top 8 scores, and scoring really will be the biggest question mark. They only averaged 62 points per game last year, but an expected run in the NCAA tournament, not just getting there for the first time since 2005, but advancing in the NCAA tournament is a legitimate probability for UCF.
If you're just now joining us, BJ Taylor picked as the preseason player of the year, and Taco Fall landing on that second team. But one thing that makes this team so dangerous is the trio you see right here. BJ Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins, and Taco Fall. Why can these three players take UCF the distance this season?
I think Aubrey Dawkins is the game changer there. I think, we talked about BJ Taylor. We talked about his talent. He's one of the best point guards in the country. We talked about Taco Fall, his defensive presence. He might be the best center, most imposing player in the nation. But Aubrey Dawkins, coming into last year, before he got injured, he had an injured shoulder that sidelined him for the entire year after surgery. He was a projected late first-round NBA pick. He's a transfer from Michigan. He was sixth man of the year at Michigan. He is an absolute freak athlete. You know, Haley, you've watched a lot of basketball. There are players that have great athleticism, and there are players who are really fundamentally sound. They almost play like a coach's son. Aubrey Dawkins has that weird combination, in a good way, of both. He's a great athlete and fundamentally sound, a great three-point shooter, shot over 40% from the three-point line. When you take BJ Taylor's talent, Taco Fall's defensive presence on the inside, and you compound it with an NBA talent like Aubrey Dawkins, this is why UCF is picked to win the conference. And then you have, again, we go back to, they return 7 of their top 8 scorers from last year. Cesar DeJesus, Terrell Allen. You had a new face in Colin Smith, which is a name you need to remember, 6'11" transfer from George Washington. This team is a great defensive unit. Now, with the addition of Aubrey Dawkins, this team can be an efficient offensive unit if they stay healthy.
Fall, Dawkins, Taylor, you mentioned it to me. You believe it's the most dangerous trio in the country. How will teams prepare to match up with those three?
Oh, I have no idea. That's for them. That's why I'm not a coach. No, I'm just kidding. You need to force UCF to take outside shots. That's really what it comes down to, until they prove themselves to be a legitimate perimeter threat. BJ Taylor's a very good three-point shooter. Aubrey Dawkins is a capable three-point shooter. They brought in a JUCO transfer, Frank Burtz, who shot over 50% from the three-point line in junior college. So there are opportunities for the Knights to shoot the three-point shot. They just haven't proven it yet. They need to prove that they can knock down the three-point shot. That is the great equalizer in college basketball. So until that time, teams need to force UCF to play in the perimeter beyond the three-point line.
We're going to keep breaking down UCF, but we want to mention, if you're tuning in with us live here on Facebook, we're excited to have several of you starting your morning with us. Leave us your comments, interact with us on Facebook, even throw a few questions our way. We'll try to get to them here throughout our show as the day rolls on. Mike, we've talked about UCF's injuries last season. How devastating were those injuries in terms of the entirety and what they were able to accomplish last season?
Brutal, because this time last year we were talking about really high expectations for this UCF team, because you had BJ Taylor, you had Taco Fall, you had AJ Davis, who was one of the best two-way players in the American Conference. There was a good chunk of talent, and UCF was just coming off an NIT Final Four appearance where Coach Johnny Dawkins massively overachieved with what the national perception was for this UCF team. When BJ Taylor goes down, he's one of the best guards in the country. Taco Fall missed a huge chunk of the season with an injury to his hip. That left him sidelined for a big chunk of the year, and he never really found his rhythm and routine going into conference play. Then you had nick and knack injuries as well. Chance McSpadden, who was a backup, kind of 6th, 7th man off the bench. He was one of UCF's best perimeter defenders. He was out for a big chunk of the year as well. So it really hurt them. Anytime when you have your top 2 players and 2 huge difference makers for any team that they play go down with huge injuries, it makes a really big difference. So, again, I say it, if UCF is healthy, they're going to be really, really good.
All right, a fun one for you here. I say it as well. If UCF stays healthy, Mike, what will the headline be come March?
Yeah, I think they're a Sweet 16 team. And, I think because of their size, because of their depth and their experience, you have a lot of juniors and seniors on this team. Those are the teams that really advance in the NCAA tournament. We talk a lot about one-and-done type teams early in the year, but in the NCAA tournament, most of the time experience wins out. Villanova's a great example of that. There are 2 national championships in the last 3 years. They did it with experience. They did it with senior leadership. I think that's why this UCF team is built for a March run. They're built for not just getting to the NCAA tournament, but winning that first round, getting that second round win, and advancing to the Sweet 16. I don't think that's a fabrication. I don't think that's outlandish to say. I believe this, if they're healthy, because of the fact that they can play 12 guys, and you have that trio of B.J. Taylor, Aubrey Dawkins, Taco Fall. If they're close to 35, 36% as a team from the three-point line, this is a Sweet 16 team that's going to go dancing.
You heard it right here in October from Mike O'Donnell himself. The UCF Knights, Sweet 16. We'll see how your prediction holds true come March. A young program with veteran experience looking to write history this season. Now, a team with new faces but rich tradition is the pick to finish second. Cincinnati coming off back-to-back 30-win seasons. How impressive, Mike, is the consistency of this program been under head coach Mick Cronin?
First time in school history that they've had back-to-back 30-win seasons. 8 straight NCAA tournament appearances. You want to know how consistent and great Mick Cronin has been? Duke, Kansas, Gonzaga, Michigan State, and North Carolina are the only other teams to do that. He's got a great formula. He fuses raw talent and athleticism together with desire and grit, and they form a hard-nosed defensive unit. You hate and despise playing against Cincinnati because you know it is going to be an absolute war.
Here's a look at the Cincinnati resume, Mike. You mentioned it, and they're in some pretty good company with teams across the country. Not many to have accomplished this feat. Now, this is going to be a bit of a challenge this year, though, for Cincinnati. A lot of new faces. They have to replace 3 former players, Gary Clark, Kyle Washington, and Jacob Evans. What did those 3 players contribute to the lineup that will be so difficult to replace this year?
Well, it's leadership, it's consistency, it's the ability to score. They were great defenders. Coach Cronin never had to worry. That's really what you want in your senior players, is where you don't have to worry about effort. You don't have to worry about execution. You don't have to worry about leadership. Those 3 players brought it. Now, Jacob wasn't a senior, but he was a veteran-type leader. And when you don't have to worry as a coach, that is a great feeling, especially when your top 3 players. So with those 3 players gone, you need other players to step up. We talked about Jerron Cumberland, but other players need to step up to kind of fill that void. But I have a feeling that this team could be even better defensively because I think they're more athletic than last year's Cincinnati team.
You mentioned Cumberland. He'll be a player that Cronin needs to step up this season. How would you sum up Cumberland's game?
He's a bruiser, you know. He's one of those players that he's kind of hard to figure out because of his size, you may think he's not quick, but he is. And because of his ability to get to the rim, you may think he's just a slasher, but he was Cincinnati's best three-point threat last year from a percentage standpoint. So when you combine his ability to be physical around the rim and his ability to shoot the three-point shot, my favorite part about his game is his ability to get his teammates involved. He was a great distributor last year, specifically for Gary Clark and Jacob Evans. I'm a huge fan of Jerron Cumberland's game. I think he's one of those guys that's going to push B.J. Taylor and maybe even Jalen Adams for Player of the Year at the end of the year. Very talented, big physical guard. He needs to score more. That's what Coach Cronin needs him to do this year.
I love this here on Facebook. We have Cincinnati in the house. In fact, April Broom, she says the Broom family is well represented here and watching. In fact, UC all day is what she says. And I know Kane Broom is going to be a key piece to the puzzle this year. But who are some of the faces that are going to step in and fill some of these voids? Well,
I would like to talk to you about Kane Broom for a second real quick because I think he got left in the shadows a little bit last year. Not that he wasn't a great player because he was tremendous, but he's going to have a more scoring role this year. People forget Sacred Heart. 2 years ago when he was at Sacred Heart, he was 25 points a game, 8th in the country in scoring, so he can light it up. And now with the departures of those 3 players that we talked about, Clark, Washington, and Evans, it's going to be Cumberland and Broom that's going to take on the heavy scoring burden for Cincinnati. But I don't think Kane Broom is worried about it. I don't think he's upset about having more of the ball in his hands. He can score, he can light it up, and I think you'll see him around 15, 16 points per game this year. Look for Trey Scott and Trevor Moore for Cincinnati to fill in that gap in the front court. They are an athletic group. They're going to be great on the boards this year for Cincinnati.
We mentioned it, 8 straight trips to the NCAA tournament, one of only 6 teams that can make that claim. Mike, will this be the same old Cincinnati?
No question. I'm not picking against Mick Cronin. You got to remember, too, they took a trip to Canada in which there was an opportunity for them over the summer for Mick Cronin to grab extra practices, play games against professional teams in Canada and learn about his team. And coming away from that, he really felt that this team can be better defensively than last year. Just a reminder, They were statistically the best defensive percentage team in the country last year. They're more athletic up front. They're faster. They're going to press and be more physical in the perimeter as well. This is going to be a better Cincinnati team on the defensive end. It's even hard to say that out loud.
Cincinnati will be looking for some new stars to emerge in the coming season, but a team that has a ton of hype surrounding its homegrown star in Memphis. First-year head coach Penny Hardaway is on a mission to get his alma mater back to its winning ways.
Memphis, melded on the mighty Mississippi. This Tiger team with tradition sees the homecoming of a holy hoops icon. And Fernie Hardaway. Now Coach Penny Hardaway is back and brings a strong class of recruits to add to his stacked deck. Jeremiah, Mr. Memphis Martin. This steadfast scorer takes the Tiger offense by its tail. Whether driving, dishing, or delivering downtown, he does it all. Kevon Davenport, an inside-outside wingman who makes the Tigers roar as dangerous as ever. Penny looks to punctuate this potential with a new energy and a style as the Tigers shoot for a title.
Well, that'll make you excited for some Memphis basketball this year, and shout out to Craig Richardson, a Memphis fan tuning in with us on Facebook. But right off the bat, let's start off with Penny Hardaway. He's a Memphis legend, Mike, through and through. How big of an impact do his local connections have in building this program with local talent?
Well, I got a little starstruck yesterday when I walked past him because I was a big Orlando Magic fan growing up. And to see Penny Hardaway as a Division I head coach is really cool. He's one of my favorite players to watch. He was a big-time NBA player. He restored the buzz to Memphis overnight. And when you talk about last year, Memphis averaged about 4,500 fans last year, and that's low standards for Memphis Tigers basketball. At Midnight Madness, just a few days ago, 18,000 fans showed up for Midnight Madness to watch Penny Hardaway and some of the new faces he's bringing to this Memphis program. Palpable buzz. I've been dying to say that phrase all up until all summer. Has been restored into Memphis. Really excited for this team.
Outside of Memphis, between his signature shoes to his famous Lil Penny commercials, how will that help him when it comes to recruiting outside of his hometown on the national scale? You know, when you're wearing your own shoes and you walk into a recruit's living room and the recruit is wearing Penny Hardaway shoes, that's a big deal. That matters. Branding is everything. And I think from a recruiting standpoint, it's massive. He's played at a high level in college. He was an NBA All-Star. He's one of the greatest wings of all time in the NBA. When you can sit across the table from a recruit's mother, a recruit's father, and say, I know what it takes to get your son to the next level, that's going to really turn a lot of heads. He's going to be a recruiting machine, and he's already started it with bringing in a few recruits from the city of Memphis, and I think it's going to be an awesome year. Memphis got one vote for the top team in the American Conference. I wouldn't be surprised if this Memphis team, because of their new talent and Jeremiah Martin, and Penny Hardaway is going to take this team dancing this year. Penny Hardaway has surrounded himself with an excellent coaching staff as well, and a high-profile one, to say the least. Two-time NBA champion Mike Miller, Sam Mitchell, Tony Madlock. What kind of culture is Penny trying to establish? Okay, you mentioned Mike Miller, but Sam Mitchell is a name that maybe some people may not really know. He was NBA Coach of the Year. He was one of the top NBA head coaches for a good chunk of the 2000s. And I think when you bring him on staff from an X's and O's standpoint, from a culture standpoint, how to scout against opposing teams, it's huge, it's massive, it's everything. Everybody, also the national perception is, okay, Memphis is going to have a lot of young talent, and it's exciting to see what type of talent that Penny Hardaway is going to bring to Memphis. But they're wondering, can he coach? What about the X's and O's? I think he's going to be fine. They're not just talking about Sam Mitchell on the bench. This is a guy who paid his dues. He started out in middle school basketball, worked his way up to East High at Memphis, where he won 2 state titles as a head coach. And his team, Penny AAU team, was one of the top AAU teams in the nation. Guess what? He knows basketball. He can coach. He knows how to fuse talent together. I think Coach Hardaway is going to be just fine. We've talked about the coaching staff. We've talked about Jeremiah Martin. 5 freshmen from the Memphis area. How can we expect these new faces to make an impact right out of the gate?
So Tyler Harris and Alex Lomax, it's a big deal that they got them. Tyler Harris, 5'9", Tennessee, Mr. Basketball last year. He's one of the top scorers in the history of Memphis high school basketball. And also, you bring in Alex Lomax, another 5'10" player. He played for Penny at East High and in middle school. He actually backed out of a commitment to Wichita State when Coach Hardaway got the job at Memphis. He was Mr. Basketball in Tennessee in 2016 and 2017 until he lost it to Tyler Harris. So those two players are going to be a big deal when you talk about guard play, when you talk about spacing and where the game is headed and the way that Coach Hardaway wants to play an up-tempo style of play. Those two players are going to make a massive difference for Memphis basketball.
There's obvious excitement and energy surrounding this program, but the season hasn't even started yet. Mike, what are the realistic expectations for Memphis this season?
Well, I think most people feel that Memphis is going to finish in the middle of the pack. And I think it's possible only because of the fact that a lot of your offense is going to come from new faces, from freshmen, and a few transfers come in there. But when you look at Memphis and you look at the style of play they want to play in, we're going to have a really good idea around January and how this team is going to come together. There might be some bumps in the road along the way, but they have great guard play, and we just spent all that time talking about their freshmen. But you add in those talented freshmen with Jeremiah Martin, who is the best two-way player in the American Conference and a really, really great point guard, shooting guard combo. I don't know. I just look at this team and I think great guard play, that gets you to the NCAA tournament. That gets you to the NIT. I think they're going to be fine come March. I think they'll probably have to win the American Conference tournament in order to get to the NCAA tournament. But they're going to be one of those bubble teams that I think a lot of people will be surprised to be, oh, by the way, Penny Hardaway can coach. We couldn't believe it. I think he's going to be fine. I think there's great talent there. This is a team that's going to be one of those bubble teams that might be on the cusp of getting to the NCAA tournament.
Quickly, you mentioned the conference tournament and Memphis having to win it. If Memphis can put together a solid regular season, how much of a game changer is it that they're going to have the home crowd behind them come March?
Playing at home, that's everything. You don't have to travel. You don't have to hop in a plane. You're playing at home. You're sleeping in your own bed, and you're going to have that hometown crowd. And Memphis fans are awesome. Memphis basketball fans are some of the best fans in all of college basketball. And when FedEx Forum is rocking, I know I've played there multiple times and lost 3 times. I could never win at the FedEx Forum. That place is so difficult to win because the atmosphere is insane, and that buzz right now, it's crazy. It's going to be hard to win at Memphis. And you're right, Memphis playing well going into the conference tournament, that's a big deal. You can really ride that wave.
Well, I know you guys at home want to hear from head coach Penny Hardaway, so I had a chance to sit down with Penny last night. All right, Coach, well, welcome. All right, Coach, well, welcome to American Basketball Media Day. Excited to have you here. And I have to admit, I was in Memphis a couple of weeks ago. People are excited. People are talking about your basketball program. As someone who was born and raised and started your career off in Memphis, what makes that city so different?
Well, I think that what makes Memphis different is everyone from a toddler to 99 years old understands basketball and knows the game of basketball. How that happened, I do not know, but as long as I've been on this earth, I've known that people love, eat, drink, and sleep basketball in Memphis, so it's a huge basketball town.
We just talked about Memphis Madness, but it seems like a pretty unique night compared to others across the country. How would you describe that night?
Phenomenal. That's how I can describe that night. We flew on a black floor, so we can have a kind of an all-star weekend type of experience. We had a blue carpet experience outside. We had on suits. Our guys had on suits and sneakers to come out in, and man, it was just it was a great night all the way around. And the women were involved with three-point shootout and the alternate obstacle course, and of course they couldn't get in the dunk contest, but yeah, it was a great night.
As the head coach of the program, it was kind of your first time stepping foot on the court with your team, with the fans in attendance. When you heard the crowd cheer, what was the first feeling that came to mind?
I got some nerve, like the nerves started going a little bit because there was 18,000 people screaming to the top of their lungs, which I truly appreciate, and I'm sure they appreciate me for taking the job, but I was just loving it for the kids, honestly, because
What is that culture that you're looking to establish?
Well, I mean, when we came in, I've always been a guy that wanted everything to be tough, to not give up anything easy, because you have to earn everything that you get in life, and I feel like every team needs to earn whatever they get against us. So and not taking any plays off. Multiple efforts is big with me, and not ever giving in or quitting. So that's the culture that I want to set.
You grew up in Memphis. You got to play your collegiate career at Memphis, and then obviously a long NBA career. Why was it important to you to go back to your alma mater and be the head coach?
It was important because the school needed it, the town needed it, and I needed it. I think I needed to prove to myself that I could do the job because it's been out there for a while, and people have been asking me if I wanted it, and I didn't know if I did, but now the timing was perfect on it, and it just means so much to me to be in the helm, and I got to prove to myself that I can do what I know that I can do.
Going to take you back a little bit. How does the Memphis State of the early 90s compare to the University of Memphis in 2018? Wow,
it's so different. The 90s Memphis State was kind of slow motion. Everybody was about their business. 2018 it's the social media, it's live, it's wild, it's a ton of energy, and I'm enjoying that as well.
The Little Penny commercials, they're still popular amongst your fan base. How much have your players taken interest in your alter ego from the mid-90s?
They really haven't said, my players haven't said a lot about Little Penny. They're more in the sneaker culture, so they talk about my sneakers, but they're not really into the Little Penny era yet. Maybe one or two of them might get into it later, but now I haven't really been hearing much about Little Penny. But the sneakers, my sneakers, I have been hearing a lot about.
You've had a storied career both playing at Memphis and in the NBA. What will make this next chapter worth it for you?
What will make it worth it is just the kids graduating, all of my kids graduating and going on and being successful in life, first of all. And secondly, for me, getting that national championship. I would love to have that, be the first coach to get that for Memphis.
As you get ready to take the floor with your team in year one, what does the Penny Hardaway of today tell the Penny Hardaway from college several years ago?
I would say just leave it all out on the line. We're not looking back. If they beat us, they're going to have to earn it. I'm big on that. Make them earn it.
Lastly, we're headed to Memphis this year for the conference championship. Excitement surrounding your hire. Excited to see what the team can accomplish this season. But how exciting is it that come the end of the year, the championship gets to end in your city?
It's amazing. I was really shocked to find out, but I was really happy, that to have it in my own hometown and in Memphis. We're going to feed all of the teams as much food, other teams as much food as they want. And
we'll have a lot. That won't be hard to do. People generally find their way when they're in Memphis.
Yeah, and we're just going to have fun with it. We're excited to have it in Memphis.
Best barbecue place in Memphis?
I would say Rendezvous.
Good answer. All right, thanks a lot, Coach. Good luck in year one.
Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Memphis fans, you have to promise not to be mad at your head coach. He said Rendezvous, but afterwards he mentioned that there are several other top contenders for barbecue in the Memphis area. So we're excited to check out some of those places come March when we're in FedEx Forum for the conference championship. But speaking of FedEx Forum, it's just one of the incredible arenas that teams across this country get the opportunity to play in throughout the year. In fact, a couple of programs will be back on campus this year playing in brand new renovated buildings. Cincinnati reopens Fifth Third Arena while Houston returns to the newly renovated Fertitta Center. Both facilities, both state-of-the-art upgrades across the board. Fifth Third holding a little over 12,000, then the Fertitta Center over 7,000. Mike, how do venues like these continue to help build this league?
Well, the first thing I would like to say is both these new venues are all privately funded. No state funds were used when you're talking about raising the capital in order for these massive construction projects. Hofheinz Pavilion needed an upgrade, and they got a $60 million upgrade. I think they got new lower bowl, new club, new suites, and that facility is going to be absolute tops in the country. And then Fifth Third Arena, going to be incredible for Cincinnati. They opened that game versus Ohio State. That place is going to be absolutely rocking. They have a hydrotherapy spot, classroom, 360-degree concourse. I think Fifth Third Arena is going to be an absolute amazing place to play and an awesome venue.
You see it in action right here, construction going on as they try to get these arenas ready for the season, which is tipping off in just a couple of weeks. And you probably hear us here on the set. We're joined now by the UCF Knights head coach Johnny Dawkins and guard Aubrey Dawkins. Great to have the pick to win the league this year here with us. Coach, let's start with you. Your team announced as the preseason favorite this morning. Why is this year's team positioned to have a historic season?
Well, I think health-wise, if we're healthy, I think we have experience. And we have guys that have been in this league and and a couple of new additions that I think will give us some energy and provide maybe a spark for us. So I just think the fact that we're an older team, and I think that experience means a lot.
So before we get into really in depth here, we have two of the best dunkers in the American Conference here on set with us, me and Aubrey Dawkins.
That's not what I was expecting.
Kidding. The legend over here to my right, Johnny Dawkins. But so, Coach, you have talent, experience, depth, and high expectations. But there's a lot of noise that comes with that. How do you stay focused, and what has been the motto internally for this team moving into this year?
To me, it's about sacrifice. I mean, I think that word encompasses what you have to do if you want to try to have a successful season of any type. And what that means for us is making sure that you're very, sacrificing amongst each other, your teammates, but also sacrificing, with your time with regards to getting your sleep, getting your rest, your preparation, all the things that's required for you to be successful as a team and as an individual. So if we bind to sacrifice and we work hard to get better every day, and we try to become a close team every day, we have a chance to compete.
Aubrey, you finally get to take the court this season at UCF. What has been the biggest challenge about waiting the past 2 years? Now you finally get to play in a game here this season.
Just the patience. It's been a long time, and I've worked a lot of hours in that gym, putting in time, and it's slowly coming. It's almost here.
What have you done in the off season to get yourself ready to take the court come game day?
Continuing to work out, make sure I'm a leader on and off the court, lead my teammates, bring that seasoned veteran that I am to the table every day and do my best to continue to take care of my body.
So we talk about a lot, B.J. Taylor, Taco Fall, your son Aubrey. It's a great trio. And you have players like Caesar DeJesus, Terrell Allen, Chad Brown, they were really great filling some of that void from an injury standpoint last year. But you have a couple new faces coming to the table. Can you talk about the new UCF family members on your team?
Well, we have a young man, Frank, who is a 6'5" shooting guard. I think he will give us, added shooting ability, which is really good. But he also has a good feel for the game, good basketball IQ, makes guys around him better. So I think he'll be a really good addition to our club as well. You didn't mention Dayon Griffin, who was a returner from last year, who is a very good shooter, didn't have a great shooting season, but my expectation is that he'll shoot the ball a lot better this year. He's prepared himself this off season. I'm excited to watch him. And then we have another young man who transferred in named Ibrahim, he has a chance to be just a really good player around the basket, kind of a jack of all trades around the rim, rebounder, finisher, but also can make an open shot as well.
What does transfer Colin Smith add to the table?
Colin Smith, I think he adds versatility for us. He's long, he's rangy, he's very mobile. He can get up and down the floor, play multiple positions for us. So he's someone who that we're very excited about. He's had a really good, preseason, and we're looking forward to him having a good season for us as well.
Coach, you mentioned the veteran experience, and you talk about some of the new faces on this roster, but where will we see the most growth on your team this coming season?
I think the most growth we'll see on our team will be probably on the offensive end. I think ball movement, sharing the basketball, spacing, things of that nature we'll be better at than we were, I believe, last season. Last year, I think when you surround Taco, he's a unique player, as you guys all know. I think now guys are more accustomed to playing with him. Last year, they really weren't. They were trying to find their niche with regards to playing with Taco. Now I think guys understand their spacing and where they need to be and how they need to share the basketball. So I think that's probably been the biggest jump I've seen us make.
To kind of bounce off that, Aubrey, when Coach talks about Taco being a unique player to play with, you've played with him in practice but not in the game. And when you first got here, what was the difference and how did you learn to play with a guy like that?
Well, I'm still learning every day because, like you said, I haven't played a game with him and I haven't had even that many practices on the same team with him. So I've played against him a good amount of times, but never with him. So
it's probably not fun, right?
Yeah, it's not fun to play against him, and with him it makes things so much easier. Though for me, it's very easy because I'm a guy who shoots the basketball. So if I throw it in, he kicks it out with a double team and kicks it out. That's an open shot for me or any of my teammates. You know what I'm saying? So that's really where I think I benefit.
Aubrey, for fans at home, they've been excited and waiting to see you take the court. And for fans who haven't gotten to see you play yet, how would you describe your game to them?
A versatile guy. I think I bring a lot to the table offensively and defensively, and I'm like kind of like Coach said about Colin Smith, a little bit of a jack of all trades, all the things I can do on the court. But my best attribute is shooting the basketball, so I think that's what they can look forward to.
I love that you just called him coach, because before we let you guys go, we can't let you leave without talking about father-son. It's not every day we get to have one of those on the set with us. Aubrey, how unique has this experience been, getting to play college basketball with your dad as the head coach?
Very unique. Not a lot of guys have done it. So I'm happy to say that I have done it, and I'm doing it.
What has been the biggest challenge?
I mean, not playing. I mean, you get coached so much by our practice every day, and there's like no release from it. There's no game, or everything's practice. So that's probably I'd say has been the toughest thing for me.
We have to understand the reality of this situation, because when there is that time spent away from the basketball court, how hard is it rather to leave basketball back at the gym?
Very difficult. He'll come by for dinner and spend time at the house, and it's, I'm gonna start saying something in basketball while something that happened in practice. He's probably looking at me like, man, we just left the gym. But that's the one difference probably when you are coaching your son is that on and off switch. There's no on and off switch when it's your son, because when he comes around you can start it's going to kind of come up. Yeah. Let's talk about this. Or what happened on this play in practice? What did you do defensively there? He's probably looking at me like, man, if I was with another coach, I'd be free right now.
Get some peace and quiet when you go home. Well, I imagine that switch will be on quite a bit now in the next few months of the season. Thank you both for joining us here on the show. Best of luck to you this season. And last night, Mike actually had a chance to catch up with BJ Taylor.
Hey guys, here with senior leader BJ Taylor of the UCF Knights, star point guard. Okay, BJ, I got a few questions for you. High expectations this year, right? How does one, as a senior, as a leader of the team, drain out the noise and focus on the season each day?
I think the biggest thing for us is just buying into Coach and what he's telling us every day, buying into being a team, and just having our own expectations. Like you said, there are high expectations, and we like having expectations, but the biggest thing for us is, we have our own team goals, and we just got to work every day in practice, getting better to try to achieve those.
You get a lot of noise from the outside, like you said, but you do have internal goals. I mean, there's a lot of talent on this UCF team. At the end of the year, where do you see the Knights?
I mean, that's so far down the road to predict, honestly, Mike. I mean, we're just trying to go day by day with it, work every single day in practice, do what we got to do to be, the best team we can possibly be. And as long as we just take it day by day and trust in the process, that Coach lays out for us every day, we'll get to where we want to get to.
Trust in the process. That is a senior answer. I love it. That's the answer I wanted. That's big time. But as a senior, as a point guard, what do you want to do for this Orlando community, the Central Florida community that's, been looking for a team like this to get behind? I mean, how much do you guys step on the floor at CFE Arena, play for those fans every night?
I mean, that's huge. Doing it for the community, doing it for Orlando. Me, Taco Chad are all Florida guys, and it's huge for us. We need the community behind us. We need their support, and we need them out there every night giving us the energy that they can give us. Orlando loves basketball, and we just need their support every single night and trying to do something special for UCF.
One of the best point guards in the nation, BJ Taylor, senior for the UCF Knights.
We now welcome Cincinnati head coach Mick Cronin and Jaron Cumberland here to the set. Thanks for stopping by. Coach, let's start with you. Your team looks a lot different this year than it did last season, having to fill some of those voids. What is going to be the biggest challenge right off the bat as you gear up for this year?
Well, probably on offense. Obviously, our guards are going to have to score a lot more. Jaron, Kane, Justin. Not being able to just throw the ball inside to Gary Clark, Kyle Washington. But we've still got a lot of guys back. So I think we got 9 returning players. We just lost 3 great players. And our program, you hope you have guys ready to slide over from supporting role to starring role, and I know Jaron is.
Here's the thing that I get frustrated with from a national perception standpoint is you say, Cincinnati, they're going to be really good defensively. It's the same old Cincinnati. You don't just roll out of bed, put your shirt on, and play Cincinnati basketball. I mean, there's a process that goes into place. Can you give a little insight to us on kind of the steps you took this summer, roll into this year, and how you develop that type of culture?
Every year, you're right. Every year, it's like you have to tear down your home and rebuild it. It's not easy. Now, we've been to 8 straight tournaments, so people tend to expect it from you. But there's a lot of hard work that goes into it. The other thing is it's exciting. When you got new guys and you're trying to help young kids become better players, But there's no doubt it's not easy. And, you know, from a national perspective, I think that we need to make a run in March to probably change that a little bit.
Jaron, you hear Coach talk about the process and getting this year's team ready. What has been the biggest challenge for this team in the offseason?
I'd say really just being ready on defense and trying to learn all the defensive stances and stuff. Coach has been breaking it down in offense and defense, all the stances, and just working with everybody, trying to make them a better player.
Coach mentions you're going to be a key to filling some of those big shoes and especially those leadership roles from last year. What have you personally focused on in the offseason to take your game to the next level?
One thing I really focused on is becoming a better ball handler and keeping my head up to find open guys and make them better.
It's one of my favorite parts of your game, being unselfish, man. I love the fact that when we talk about consistency from a athletic standpoint with Cincinnati, but you graduated 12 straight seniors. And what does that mean, not just for you personally, but you go on the recruiting trail, you sit in the room with mom and dad, say, we're going to graduate your son.
Well, that's the most important thing. Not just graduate them, help them grow up and realize what it is to be a real man. And you're trying not to just help, Jaron become the best player he can be, but become the best person he can be. And the degree, I would say, would be the bottom denominator in all that, and that should be a given. Now, we have 4 guys in the NBA right now. We have over 20 guys in Europe, and different guys that are now starting careers, like trying to get your job. And, stuff like, so that's the most important thing. It's the most gratifying thing in the coaching business.
This question's for both of you. Your team was finally able to claim the conference crown last year in the American Championship. What lessons can be taken away from last season to propel this team moving forward?
Well, I'd say, I think for Jaron, he saw what it really took to win. It's not easy. We talked about this a little bit. It's hard because you got to beat really good teams. So when you win and then you win again and you keep getting up against a better team each time, your margin for error shrinks. And then they start to realize why the coach is crazy. And he doesn't like when you make mistakes because you know what it takes to win a championship. So the guys in our locker room now know that, and I think it can do nothing but help.
One of the coolest things for me my senior year was I got to open up a new arena. And you get an awesome opportunity to play in that new renovated Fifth Third Arena. Have you had a chance to see it yet, and how excited are you to play in that place?
I haven't got a chance to really walk in there and see it yet, but I saw the pictures and everything, and it looks nice. So I'm just ready to go in there and play the first game.
I love it. Coach, you got an opportunity to go to Canada this summer. It's a great opportunity for coaches and players, try to develop that culture early, learn about your team, try to figure out which matchups worked. What are some of the takeaways from that Canada trip?
Well, we really tried to realize what we're going to figure out, work on, and then figure out how we're going to score this year. We didn't do much at all defensively in the summer. I know that's hard for people to believe.
Shocking, yeah.
But we really spend our time in the summer on individual development, and this team's different offensively. Like I said, we could just dump it into Gary Clark, Kyle Washington. They either scored or got a double team all the time. So we have to be a much better screening team. We got to be able to get Jaron open. We got to be able to free our guards up off the pick and roll. We have to be a great screening team. So whenever you can go and get 10 extra days of practice and then play some games, and then we played a great team in Carleton University, and who does a tremendous job of playing offense.
People don't realize how good of a team that is.
Yeah. They're unbelievable.
Yeah, no doubt.
And it's the best team that they've ever had this year. So it was great for us to get a chance to play them, and not only for us to learn, but then we could show the film, see how they do it. They got all these veteran guys, and they really spread the ball around the floor, because that's what we need to do with our guards this year.
Coach, Mike mentioned the process of building the type of style that your team likes to play, but 8 straight trips to the NCAA tournament, consistency has truly become an identity for your program. What quality keeps this program heading back to the tournament year in and year out?
Players. Everything else is just talk. If you don't have players, when you take over a program, maybe I'm a little bit better coach than I was 12 years ago, now it's 13 years ago, but the players have changed. Just get better players. You got to make sure that you got players, but then that part of it is you got to have players that are good guys that want to win. And guys like Jaron, like, he's a great example. He knows basketball. So he was raised in a basketball family, and he plays basketball to win. Some people play for fun, for stats. We try to Cincinnati make sure we're always playing to win. If you do that, then the rest falls into line.
I know we mentioned Fifth Third Arena opening. I know we have some footage. We didn't get to spend a ton of time talking about it, but I think this is really exciting. You had to play off campus last year, but your fans traveled. But Coach, how significant is it going to be to truly have your home crowd behind you on campus and having an excellent viewing experience in the process?
Well, it's going to be awesome for our fans. You know, being a graduate of the school, spending most of my career at Cincinnati, the program has meant so much to the university, men's basketball, that the program deserves the arena. But the arena is going to be a centerpiece. It's just a beautiful place for our entire university. Not only is it going to be great for our sport, women's basketball, volleyball, it's just a great recruiting tool in general for our entire student body. So we're excited that we're finally getting able to get back in there. You got to know, our players have been in a makeshift locker room down by the old armory where Oscar played since, a year and a half. March of 16 is when we got kicked out, so they could start tearing it down and rebuilding that place.
Well, it looks like you guys are going to have a great home to welcome you this season. Thank you both for stopping by our set, and best of luck to you in the coming season. Thank you.
We appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, coming up next, we're going to dive into a Houston squad that has found its stride under head coach Kelvin Sampson. Stay with us.
It begins with a vision. It builds strength, endurance, focus, determination. It transforms athletes into a team and fans into believers. It creates an unstoppable force, a force to be reckoned with, a force that is power. The American Power for Life.
Oh, that ball is hit deep, left field, way back. That ball is gone. Double play ball potentially. Schreitenthal's over to first. In time, double play, and that ends the game.
Welcome back here to American Basketball Media Day in Philadelphia. I'm Haley Outen, joined by Michael.
And who's back versus kind of past tradition. I think the right choice was made, but I thought it was interesting just to see the number of teams that are getting votes, which I think tells you about the balance across the league and the strength at the top, because a lot of times you go to these media days and it's like, all right, boom, they got 20 votes and we're out. That wasn't the case here.
You have a lot of discussion the last 2 years about, where is UConn basketball? Where is Memphis basketball? The hire of Dan Hurley, the hire of Penny Hardaway, can you speak to those two hires and what they mean to those cities and programs?
They are, I can't stress enough how important those two hires are to get not only a good coach and the right person in a job, but a person that can get the fan base excited. Memphis is on fire. I was down there this summer, to do a story with Penny. And people are just over the moon excited to have him. I mean, my goodness gracious, 18,000 people for Hoops Mania, says everything that he can do and bring in the recruits. And Danny Hurley, too, a guy with Northeast ties, New Jersey, from New Jersey. He knows what UConn is. Everyone knows who he is. And he's proven to be a great coach at both Wagner and Rhode Island. Those are the kinds of schools that will just make this league even better. When they're good, everybody's good around them.
Dana, you mentioned being in Memphis. I actually was in Memphis a couple of weeks ago and noticed the same exact thing, from the Uber drivers to the moment you walk down Beale Street up to FedEx Forum. All people are talking about is Penny Hardaway and Memphis basketball, and it's pretty surreal. But with the conference championship going there come the end of the year, it's kind of like all these roads draw back to Memphis for the Tigers. They even get a first place vote in the poll. But how does this really bode well for them as the year goes on?
I think it's just momentum, right? I mean, as we all know, part of recruiting and winning college basketball is having something around you, an energy around the program. And obviously that exists. And putting your tournament there is equally important because it brings everybody in. And Memphis feels like they're the centerpiece of something really important. You know, you go backwards, obviously they've got the Grizzlies now, and everyone understandably are big Grizzlies fans, I get that. But the history of Memphis is college basketball. Going back from, Memphis State, Larry Finch, you go way, way back, that's where people fell in love with Memphis basketball. And there's such a love for college basketball there. It's a home run. I mean, it really is. And as he continues to get recruits, and he's Penny. I mean, everybody loves Penny. Who doesn't love Penny?
Yeah. Speaking of coaching history, I know Haley and I are a little bit sad, and I'm not trying to sound like it's a funeral service here, but you wrote a great article on Fran Dunphy.
Thank you.
And his, kind of last rodeo, I don't see him just riding off into the sunset kind of deal. But can you speak first to the legacy of what he's brought, not just to Penn basketball, but Temple basketball, the game itself?
Yeah, I mean, I've known Dump for, I can't go to say how many years. And I think the nicest thing I can say and the most honest thing I can say, he's a very good man. I mean, he is just a good human being. For all the years I worked in Philadelphia and I covered Big Five basketball, we called him Sweden, because if there was ever an argument, Dump could just make everybody happy. Everyone loves Dump. But you take away from just that, then you add on to his coaching legacy and what he built at Penn, and then to move down to a difficult job. I mean, into Temple, following Coach Chaney, going from a school that had no scholarships to one that did, and he's an amazing person, a great coach who has such dignity about him. I agree with you. I don't think he's just going to ride off into the sunset. And by the way, I know he absolutely hates all of this. So he doesn't want any rocking chairs. He doesn't want us talking about him. This is probably, if he's ever heard me, he'd probably throw something at my head because he doesn't want to hear this stuff.
I had a chance to talk to Coach Dunphy last night. We'll roll that interview a little bit later in the show, but sort of the same thing. Doesn't want to talk about it being his last year. He wants to make this the best yet for the current players on this year's team because they deserve it. But another unique thing about Fran is that he's not just a college basketball coach. He's been an educator in the classroom there on the Temple campus for about 12 years, and he really values that side of it as well. And he said that that's a message he would preach to his colleagues as well, is to be able to have that kind of opportunity. But moving on to talk about some of the other head coaches, we've talked about Penny, Dan, Joe Dooley at ECU. Of these three coaches, which one do you think is the best position to succeed in year one?
Well, I think right now in year one, I think you have to look. You got to look at Jalen Adams, and if Alterique Gilbert's shoulder is better, Danny Hurley's got some pieces there. I think, strong backcourt to me, I think always makes the wags the dog in college basketball. So if he's got that going on, I think right now, maybe in year one, I think UConn might surprise a lot of people. I know they are coming from very far behind, but I was up there a couple weeks ago now and talking to the players and what he's instilling in them in terms of just competition and edge. They're going to be hungry. They're going to play hard, because if you play for Dan Hurley and you don't play hard, you're not playing. So I think that just in terms of pieces back in year one, I think he's got something there to work with.
It's a little bit different this year looking at the poll. UCF picked to win it, but some teams that we're not exactly used to seeing in that bottom half, SMU, Wichita State. Mike has said it over and over again to not sleep on either of those teams. But who is your sleeper team this year?
Well, I do agree. I do think like a Wichita State, because look, I mean, I get they lost so many pieces, and I think it's where they down like 11% of their offense or something returns. It's not much, I understand. But if anyone has watched Greg Marshall work, I think we look at guys who are coming back and we look in a very traditional sense of programs. You lose somebody and there's nothing behind it. Wichita State is built on guys getting better. They're built on Greg Marshall's ability to develop players. They're not built on superstars, right? They're built on a team effort. So anybody who thinks that, okay, they lost a bunch and don't worry about them, they haven't been paying attention to what he's done at that program. So I would certainly put them in the mix as a sleeper just because of their history.
See, I'm not crazy. Dana, finally someone. Well, I'll go to the loony bin with you because I totally agree with everything you said.
All right, well, thank you so much, Dana, for joining us here on the show. Great coverage of this league as well as across the entire country. So make sure to follow Dana O'Neill from The Athletic. Up next, we're going to move on and we're going to talk about a Houston team with high expectations this year. They won their first tournament game since the 1984 season last year. They'll be back on campus in the Fertitta Center. How can they build off that momentum this season, Mike?
Well, when you take the fact that it's similar to what we just talked about with Wichita State, and where it's not just a one-off scenario or where you have a couple players and then, oh, by the way, let's just try and reload every single year. You got some great players coming back. It's not just, replacing one or two guys. There's a great foundation set in place with Houston. You know what you're getting with a Houston team, whereas maybe 4 or 5 years ago you were unsure. You know they're going to be a great three-point shooting team. They're not going to turn the ball over, and they're a very physical defensive team. And this is a team that lost. They were 1 point away from going to the Sweet 16 in the NCAA tournament, and they lost at the buzzer to Michigan. This is one of the best scoring and rebounding teams in the country. That's the thing that people forget. They are an incredible rebounding team. Even though they don't have the size, they gang rebound as a team, and that can win you a lot of games, especially late in the second half.
I know we're here to talk about the future of this team, and Houston does return 7 players, but the one person missing this year is a big piece. 2-time first-team all-conference selection, Rob Gray Jr. He was the clear leader of this team. Mike, how different will Houston look without Rob Gray?
Well, you're not going to have Mr. Top Knot, right?
We're going to miss the man.
Yeah, Rob Gray Jr. was a top 5 scorer in the country last year. He was one of the elite scoring threats in all of college basketball. You don't replace Rob Gray Jr. with just one guy, but you do have to move on. You have to set different offenses in place, and you have 2 guys that can do that. Between Corey Davis and Armani Brooks, 2 of the best returning three-point shooters in the conference. That's another thing that I think a lot of people forget is statistically. Those 2 players, they were 2 of the best three-point shooters in the conference, especially Armani Brooks, 6th man of the year coming off the bench. He was lights out from the three-point line. When you have those 2 guys, Corey Davis Jr. averaged 15 points per game. You expect his numbers to go up. Between those 2 guys, then you add in Fabian White, who had a really great second half of the year last year. Between Armani, Corey, and Fabian White, those 3 players are going to give you that mix of scoring together, as to opposed to where it's just one guy in Rob Gray Jr., where you needed a bucket last year. Those guys deferred to him. This year, you have 3 options. So in some ways, they could be even better because of the fact you don't just worry about one guy. You have to worry about 3 guys making big shots at the end of the shot clock or the end of a half.
For Houston to make it back to the NCAA tournament would be an extremely important task. Mike, for this Houston team, what will be the key if they want to return to the big dance in 2019?
Well, last year's NCAA tournament team, that was the first time they went to the tourney in 10 years, in a decade. And for them to go to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, that would be the first time since the Phi Slamma Jamma back in the 80s. So it's been a long time since the Cougars have been to back-to-back NCAA tournaments, but they're picked second in the American Conference for a reason. They return a lot of talent, specifically from a guard standpoint. You bring in Nate Hitton as a freshman. There's no question that Houston can get back to the NCAA tournament for the first time back-to-back since the 80s. Pretty cool.
Staying in the state of Texas, SMU missed out on the NCAA tournament last year after being plagued by injuries, but will look to get back to their winning ways here in the 2018-19 season. They're a team that just 2 years ago won the conference title, but last year they faced some serious adversity. How are the Mustangs positioned heading into this coming season?
Oh man, with Dre Foster going out with injury last year and that injury to Shake Milton's hand, it was brutal. It was tough. They were just decimated. Very similar circumstance to UCF actually, and where they just lost their top players. But with Jamal McMurray healthy, with Dre Foster, with Ethan Chagua, who was an all-freshman team in the American last year, had a really great freshman campaign, an underrated kind of power forward center type player, that stretch 4 forward. I think there's plenty of talent. They won't play 10 guys, but they'll play about 6 or 7 guys this year. But similar to last year, but there's really great backcourt talent in this Mustangs team.
Let's Let's take a look at the injuries from last season. SMU, as we mentioned, having to battle adversity. Shake Milton, Jamal McMurray, Everett Ray, Jure Foster. Now, Shake Milton obviously off to the NBA now, but to have these guys healthy and back, how key is that going to be?
Well, specifically when you're talking, we spoke about Jure Foster and Jamal McMurray, who, by the way, McMurray can give you 30 if you're not careful. He's that kind of streaky. Remember, he transferred from USF. This will be his first full year for SMU when he came in midway through half the year last year. Jimmy Witt is one of the most underrated players in the American Conference. He's a very crafty kind of point wing hybrid player. And if he develops more of a consistent outside shot, he becomes one of the better wing players and guards in the American Conference. You add Jimmy Witt to the mix of Jamal McMurray and Jure Foster, that is a really, really great trio for the Mustangs.
Now, you mentioned that impressive list of names, and we've talked about how to replace Shake Milton all morning long, and maybe it's not a case of replacing Shake, but other players stepping up. Is this a case where one guy steps in and fills the void, or will it be a team effort to make up for Milton's absence?
Yeah, no, similar to what we just talked about with Houston. It will definitely be a team effort, but that's the way that SMU's team is played. You have to remember, Coach Jankovic loves playing that positionless basketball. I remember talking with him last year, and he goes, I was asking him about his positionless basketball point of view. He goes, I just don't like ugly basketball. I don't like bad basketball. I like guys who can make plays. I like guys who can shoot. We want to spread the floor. We want to create good offensive situations. So I don't think it's going to be one player. It very rarely is just one guy to step in and make that change. It comes as a collective unit, but I think that's really kind of what Coach Jankovic's style of play is anyways. It is that kind of team atmosphere where positions 1 through 5 can hurt you from a variety of areas on the court. It's not just go inside to your center. It's not just shoot the 3 from your shooting guard. He runs an offense in which he puts players in spaces and in opportunities to make plays, and I think you'll see that from an SMU Mustangs standpoint on the offensive end.
For those of you at home, Mike O'Donnell loves himself some positionless basketball. We'll have a chance to talk to head coach Tim Jankovic about that a little bit later in the show. But another team that will be looking to punch its ticket to the big dance is the Temple Owls. Can they send Fran Dunphy out on a high note? That's what we'll be talking about here all morning long. The emotions for this team as they gear up to send Fran Dunphy out. Mike, how do the players manage those and really just focus on the task at hand?
I think players are resilient. I think there's a lot of media members out there that get frustrated and they'll say, well, kind of coach and waiting scenarios are never good for the players. Honestly, I've never really found that to be the case. I think when you step on the floor, you're playing. You want to win. When you put on a Temple uniform, you want to play for the city of Philadelphia. You want to play for the Temple Owls program. And I think I got a chance to speak to Shiz Alston yesterday. And we asked him that question, and he goes, we want to win for Fran. We want to win for Coach Dunphy. And I think that's a great mindset to go in. And when you have a great backcourt, you can absolutely make noise, not just in the American Conference, but in the nation as well.
We've talked about Fran Dunphy's impressive resume, obviously a long-time coach in Philadelphia, the all-time winningest coach in Big 5 history. We've talked about him on the court. He's an educator in the classroom, and just all around, I think the consensus is that Fran Dunphy is just a really good person.
Yeah.
How has he impacted the game?
Mr. Big 5, right? He just Northeast basketball. That's Fran Dunphy. You heard Dana O'Neill talk about it specifically in that he's just a good man. And I can't think of a higher compliment to give someone. We don't get to say it that often in this profession, specifically college basketball. He's a good man. He's been great to his players. His players love playing for him specifically. And I just have the feeling, knowing him a little bit, you know him better than I do, Haley, and Dana knows him better than both of us. But I have a feeling that he's not going to want to do this ride off into the sunset, take a victory lap. He's going to want to win the conference. He's going to want to win the conference tournament. He's going to get to the NCAA tournament. And it's not going to be about him. And I think that's why we love Coach Dunphy, is that this year he's going to make it about the players. He wants his players, his seniors, to go out on a high note, to go out into the NCAA tournament, and to put Temple in a position to set up Aaron McKee, who's the coach in waiting, for a successful year next year. That's what Fran Dunphy is all about. He's about the other people. He's not about Fran Dunphy.
He would not let his interview be about himself last night when I had a chance to talk to him here in Philadelphia. He said this season it's about the players. They've put the work in, and it's time to focus on them. But you do mention Aaron McKee. And if you're McKee, you're the head coach in waiting, but you've gotten the chance to learn under a legend like Fran Dunphy. What are you trying to absorb this season?
It's honestly, it's a great scenario for Aaron McKie. So first of all, he's a Temple legend, and second of all, he played in the NBA for a really long time and was really good. It's not as if he was just riding the bench for 10 years. He was a major contributor during his time in the NBA for a number of different teams. Then you take all that knowledge at the college level, you take all that knowledge at the professional level as a player, and then you learn from a coach like Fran Dunphy. It's a big deal. He wants to be really good, and he's another selfless type individual, and I think Aaron McKie is the perfect transition for Fran Dunphy, because Aaron McKie will not make it about himself this year either. It's going to be about the players, it's going to be about Temple basketball, and the tradition of winning at Temple is going to be the focus in getting them back to the NCAA tournament.
All right, finish this sentence for me. Fran Dunphy's final season ends in the NCAA tournament if what?
If they can stay healthy and if they get great production from Napier Louis. I think you have really, really great guards in Quentin Rose and Shiz Alston, but if Napier Louis can take that next jump, this is a really talented team and can make the NCAA tournament.
All right, I had a chance to sit down with head coach Fran Dunphy last evening here in Philadelphia. All right, Coach, final season at Temple, leading this program, born and raised in Philadelphia and the winningest coach in Big Five history. What has the city of Philadelphia meant to you?
Pretty much everything, Haley. You know, I was born and raised here. I had been lucky enough to have been a basketball coach in this city for a long time. And yeah, it's a special place. I think it's special for a lot of reasons. Just the basketball culture in Philly is very much a part of the fabric of the city. So we have now six Division I college basketball teams, a number of 2s and 3s, and our pro team is pretty good too. So we love basketball in Philly, and it's been an absolute privilege to be a coach here.
Philadelphia has always had sort of this toughness and grit associated with it. How has this city shaped you?
Well, I think like most major metropolitan areas, it's very diverse. There's a lot of different pockets of kinds of people and socioeconomic groups and all sorts of ways to learn about other people's lives. And so I think that's what I love about Philly, that we accept, we talk, we listen, and we figure out who each other really is. And I think it's a great place to grow up. It's a wonderful place to learn and grow, and I'm very, very proud of Philadelphia.
It's not every day that you see a college head coach both coach and educate on the college campus. Why has that been important to you?
Well, I think it gives you a better perspective of what your student athletes do, what kind of opportunities they have in the classroom, what it's typically like. And I think it puts you in a different mode by everybody else, that you're not just over in your office worried about basketball all the time, that you have the best interest of your student athletes, and then your students in your class as well. And it gives you a better feel for the university, and you get the vibe when you're on campus those Tuesday mornings, going in and out of the classroom and into the buildings. And I think it's just been a wonderful opportunity for me. And again, when you have somebody who you can do it with, and they handle a lot of the everyday issues, then it becomes a little bit easier. But I would recommend it highly to my peers.
Let's go back out to the court. What has been your proudest moment at Temple up to this point?
You know, just watching these guys come in as freshmen, get out as seniors with a degree, watching their growth, and then get to see what kind of men they are becoming. And some of them become great husbands and fathers and people in the community who do really good work. And so it's that kind of satisfaction, I think, that you watch and see, and you've been doing it for a long time. So it's neat to watch these guys grow.
As Aaron McKie prepares to take over this program next season, what will that dynamic look like this year?
Yeah, I don't know that it'll be a whole lot different. We've worked very closely together over the last 5 years, as we have done with all of our coaches. It really is a team approach, so I don't know that it'll be a whole lot different. And what we all owe to this particular class that we are helping to guide this year is that every ounce of energy needs to go into making us the best basketball team possible. So we've talked a lot about every issue, whether it's recruiting or how we should play one of our zone looks, or should we switch all of our perimeter guys, and so we've been doing this for the last 5 years. So, and Aaron he's really worked hard at it, and he's been around the block. This is not his first rodeo. He will be the new head coach, but he'll have a lot of experience going for him when he finally takes that reign.
Why will he be the right person for the job?
He's Temple. He played there, lived in the neighborhood, played there, played for Coach Chaney, played for a number of franchises in the NBA and the Philadelphia 76ers as well. So he's a Philadelphia guy, and I think he understands Temple very, very well. So it seems to be the right transition.
You've recruited the players that are here with you today. How are they handling the emotions of your final season?
Yeah, I think that they're not killing themselves fretting over it every single day, believe me, and nor should they. They should just enjoy themselves. They should play basketball, and whenever it's over, and if we've all put our best foot forward, and hopefully we can have a really good season. I would really like that for them, but they're young people, and they deserve to think about them a little more than they need to think about me.
What will make this final year the most memorable yet?
Just if we play our best basketball, and we're together as a team, and they truly care about one another, and they're really good teammates to each other. That'll make it really a special, special year. And if we do all that, and we win our share of games, and we sneak our way into an NCAA tournament or something like that, well, that'll be important and really memorable. But whatever happens, I will look back on my years of coaching with great affection and great fondness for the opportunity that I've had.
Fran Dunphy's 13th and final season as the head coach at Temple, two-time American Coach of the Year, and he has guided the Owls to 7 NCAA tournaments. The players will look to send their head coach out with a bang, and last night, Mike had a chance to catch up with Shiz Alston Jr.
Hey guys, Mike O'Donnell here with the American Conference, here with Shiz Alston, senior leader for the Temple Owls. Now, Shiz, great expectations for you guys, but announcement over the summer came. Coach Dunphy is going to be having this last year as coaching. What does he mean to you? What does he mean to the team? And how badly are you guys going to want to win for him this year?
Oh, very badly for Coach. Coach recruited me probably my freshman year in high school. I followed Coach throughout when he was at Penn and when he was at Temple. So Coach means a lot for me, so I want to go out strong for him his last year.
Yeah. So your career is a sprint, but the marathon is a season, right?
Yeah,
As a senior right now, it's your last year. You want to go out with a bang. What can we expect from the Temple Owls this year?
Oh, we're going to make some noise this year. We've been very competitive the last couple of years, but we let some games slip away. But this year we're going to make some noise, hopefully get to the tournament, make some noise in the tournament.
How have you done from a leadership perspective as a senior? You got some new guys coming in. You got a lot of new faces. Lost a few guys from last year, Obi and Josh.
Right.
Any new guys coming in that you're really excited to play with this year?
Yeah, Quentin Jackson Jr. He's a JUCO transfer. He's a really good kid, really good basketball player. So I think he can help us a lot this year.
Senior leader for the Temple Owls, Shiz Alston, coming at you.
Houston head coach Kelvin Sampson and senior guard Galen Robinson Jr. now join us on the set here at Media Day in Philadelphia. Coach, after finally getting this team back to the NCAA tournament last season, how positioned is this program to build off of that experience this year?
Well, Haley, I think everything revolves around your senior class. It always has for me. Last year with Wes Van Beck, Nur Azana, Devin Davis, and Rob Gray, that was such a great core for us. Now our junior class moves up with Galen Robinson, Corey Davis, and Breon Brady. I really feel good about that class too. I think your leadership with your seniors give you a chance to have more of a player leadership team. The coach is the leader, and he's always having to prod and get on them about this, to get them to go hard. It makes your job so much more difficult. Last year, I could listen to our team and tell how good they were because our conversation was about defensive rotations or stunts or supposed to be here, supposed to be here. They sounded like a championship team, but that comes from your leadership.
Always fascinated with the conversation of refocusing, especially after a successful season like you guys had last year. You know, a lot of times the perception is, we'll just flick on a switch and Houston's going to be really good again. It's not that easy. I mean, can you talk about the process and how you're preparing this team to, you want to move off of the success from last year, not get big-headed, and get refocused, locked in for this year?
Well, for me, people say, well, you're going to have to work even harder this year. I don't, not really. Just be who you are. I don't think we're doing anything differently now than we did as far as preparing and work 20 years ago. I don't say, well, we've got to do this better, do this more. I just think be the best you can be. Focus what's on in front of you right now. Everybody wants to focus on the destination or what's ahead of you. But like we practiced 8 o'clock yesterday morning, we got a lot done. Today we'll practice this evening in Houston around 5 or 6, whatever time we get back. And we're going to focus on that practice. Now, when you come to media day, it's all about the team and projections. But I live for today, and then after today, go tomorrow. But I love my team. I really do. I love the kids in it. I look forward to 3 o'clock every day, going down to working with them. It's a privilege for me to coach this game. I don't ever take it for granted. I appreciate this opportunity, and I appreciate coaching this team.
Galen, for you, Coach mentions you're leaving media day here in Philadelphia and flying back to Houston for practice tonight. The hard work that goes in the preseason and seeing that pay off last year in the NCAA tournament, what lessons can you take away from last season?
Well, last year, none of us had ever been to a tournament, but all the coaches have been there, and they were just telling us that we don't know what it takes, and we invested each and every day, and looking back on it, the work was hard, but for what we experienced, I do it all over again.
How hungry did it make this year's team to not only get back, but to take it even a step further?
Yeah, as far as referring to last year, I remember when we lost like the way we did. I remember I was telling the team just to remember how this feels and use it as fuel for next year. And I feel like we have a lot of guys who we have a lot to prove, and we want to kind of leave our mark on Houston basketball.
This question is for both of you. A $60 million renovation to Hoffein's Pavilion, right? Got the Fertitta Center.
Yeah.
You had a chance to step in there and kind of see the construction and everything going on?
See, Armani and I, we were the only two guys that played in the Hoffein. So we're the only ones who know what to compare it to. So I remember we went in there and, I remember those dark ages in the Hoffeins and saw the Fertitta Center, man. I almost
I played there for a couple years. It gets dark.
Yeah,
I know.
I almost shed a tear. I mean, I'm just so grateful to get ready to play in the Fertitta Center.
I mean, how great is that for your fans, alumni? I mean, it's a huge deal.
Well, I think it speaks to the commitment that our administration has made for our program. Players and coaches win games, but administrations really do put you in a position to win championships. And huge shout out to Tillman Fertitta, the owner of the Rockets. He got us started with a $20 million gift, which is why we call it the Fertitta Center.
No state funds were used for that either.
Right. We raised into $60 million. I actually went in there yesterday morning after we finished practice. Before I got on in my car and drove out to the airport, I just peeked in. The floor's down. It's all painted with the conference logo, and the baskets will go up this week, and a couple more weeks to let the paint dry and the floor finish. We'll be in there. We'll be in there pricing before you know it. We're excited.
You've gotten to see really at all the new student center, practice center, but you'll have a true appreciation compared to some of those newer guys. The full evolution of the arena at Houston. Let's talk a little bit about last year's team. I know it's all about the future, but one key piece to the puzzle you're going to be missing, just some real energy, is Rob Gray Jr. How does a leader like Galen help fill that void?
Well, the year before we lost a kid that was drafted by the New York Knicks, Damian Dotson. And I got similar questions at media day. How do you replace Damian? So now it's about replacing Rob. But, Haley, our response is always the same. We just work on making our team better. Last year we were ranked 13th in the nation on defense. I think we were ranked in the top 40 rebounding. And I convinced our kids that's why we won. There was a lot of nights when Rob didn't score the ball well or didn't play well. We still won because we defended and rebounded. We don't have anybody at the end of the game can do what Rob could do. You know, Rob was a great finisher. You know, he would beat Mariano Rivera, or I was going to say Boston's closer, but he about blew it last night. But, you know, he was just a great ninth inning guy, because we knew we had him in our back pocket to close games and pick and rolls or go make a shot, because he was fearless. But I'm confident that we'll find someone to do that. Now this year it may be the hot hand, maybe a night-to-night basis, but you know, we'll figure that out. I don't know that we have a Rob Gray, but the Houston Cougars are going to have a good team.
Speaking of a hot hand, Galen, I heard you got getting wind of an improved jumper over the offseason, man. Was that a big point of emphasis for you? I'm not saying your jumper was bad. I'm just saying.
Coach Sampson just told me. Coach Sampson knows how to get me going, basically, and gave me some gas after the fire, and you know, I just use that to motivate me every day. So just trying to be better.
Galen, lastly, you know your teammates best, but you know, other than the success that you had last season, Rob Gray's hair happened to get a lot of attention at the last year. Who in your locker room can fill that stylistic void with the hairdo this season?
Stylistic void?
Yeah.
Besides me, probably Dejan Jarreau.
The All right,
swag
so you guys are
king.
Bring it?
The swag king. The swag king.
All right, Coach Galen, thanks for joining us here at Basketball Media Day. Safe travels back to Houston. Looking forward to seeing what you both accomplish in the year ahead. All right, stay with us here in Philadelphia. Basketball Media Day rolls on here after this break.
Strong in mind, strong in body, strong in school, sport, life.
The grind is 10% physical and 90% mental.
The mind is the power.
The body is a means to jump higher, run faster,
be smarter, and live longer.
There is no weakness when it comes to seeking help.
We are stronger together.
So let's talk about it.
A waterfall starts with one drop.
Change starts with one person.
The American is dedicated to ending the stigma related to mental health
and promoting success through a healthy, powerful mind.
Promoting success through a healthy, powerful mind.
$7,000 student athletes rising to become champions in 21 different sports at 13 esteemed institutions across 11 states. 360,000 students and 2.6 million alumni rise up in celebration of a Power 6 conference known as the American. It begins with a vision. It builds strength, endurance, focus, determination. It transforms athletes into a team and fans into believers. It creates an unstoppable force, a force to be reckoned with, a force that is power. The American Power for Life.
We now welcome Wichita State head coach Greg Marshall and senior forward Marcus McDuffie to the set here at Media Day in Philadelphia. Thank you both for joining us. Coach, for you, entering your second year in the American Conference, what was your biggest takeaway from this league in year one?
Well, I knew that the league had great tradition, a lot of programs that had done well, national championships, national coach of the years, but I was surprised by the size and athleticism of the players. I was also surprised that there was a lot of zone played in the league. That was one thing I took away as a coach, but loved going to the cities, major league, professional cities, and we enjoyed our first league. We were very close to winning the regular season championship. Came up a little short against Cincinnati at home on that last Saturday, but all in all, a very successful first year, and now we get a chance to rebuild in our second year.
So Marcus, you're kind of like the old man on the crew right now. You know, you're that veteran leader.
Yes.
Can you talk about two things for me? One, how have you adjusted a little bit of that leadership role? You know, being the old guy on the block.
Yes.
And can you talk to me about some of the new guys and what that locker room has been like?
With your first thing, it's just been, it's just been natural. Just knowing that you're in a different era now. Usually we have a lot of veteran guys, so it was a lot of people just knowing the system and just knowing how we play, and just gelling with those guys made us stronger. And now,
You know, knowing that we have a younger team now, it just makes me more, you know, responsible. It's like I have a lot of children, you know, just on the basketball court. And it's just like you got to make sure everybody's on the same page. And every day you got to go out there and give it your all, because if you don't, you know, these guys look up to you. So you got to make sure you're always on your P's and Q's.
I would like to bounce off of that with you, Coach. You know, you bring in new faces, freshmen, transfers, and I know you want to speak to some of those individually, but first, can you talk about, I mean, there's that, you got to build that chemistry process and how they need to adapt and absorb that Shocker culture.
Well, first of all, I want to piggyback on Marcus, and I want to just say how pleased and I am to watch him evolve as a leader. And I think life lesson, this is going to be very beneficial this season for him, because he does have a lot of younger guys looking up to him, and he's done a wonderful job leading by example, but also being a verbal leader, something he's never had to do. We've got a lot of guys that are trying to learn our culture, as you mentioned, and I told him before the first practice, if there was one thing that I could do to snap my fingers and just give to them prior to that first practice, it would be how hard and passionate and energetic you have to play in order to be successful at this level of college basketball. I can't do that. I don't have a magic wand. So we've had to teach them that on a daily basis while giving them some organization, both offensively and defensively. But these kids are very, very excited and coachable. They really want to be coached. They want to learn. And we've gotten better, but with 9 new players, our starting point was very low.
Marcus, you had to battle your way back from injury last season and sort of work your way out onto the court throughout the course of the year. How much has fighting back from that injury fueled you for your senior season?
It fueled me so much, just like now, you know, I remember last year being here, I was on crutches, you know, I couldn't walk on both my feet. And now it's just amazing what things can happen in 1 year. And it just fuels me a lot. You know, I know what I can do when I'm at my full potential. And then when I get that chance, I'm going to take advantage of it.
Coach, for Marcus, watching him battle back from injury and be patient throughout the course of last year, leading him up to this season, you mentioned he's a more vocal leader now. How impressed are you with the growth of your player?
Well, he wasn't very patient last year. That was one of the problems. He came back from the injury and he wanted to hit the home run on the first pitch. And the grand slam in the bottom of the 9th in the World Series. It just doesn't happen that way. And he struggled with that. And that was our biggest thing, trying to get him to slow down. This year, the game has slowed down for him, and he's back to the old Marcus McDuffie. He's maybe even better than he was as a sophomore when he led us in rebounding and scoring, and it's just been a joy to watch. I mean, he's playing at a very high level, and we need him to stay healthy and continue playing at that level.
What I get excited about is flip on NBA on TNT, NBA on ESPN, and it's Ron Baker and Fred VanVleet. And I know we want to talk more about this year, but from a 30,000-foot view, national perception, and what that means to the Shocker faithful to turn on the TV and see players that you coach, built, still talking about playing angry and playing that style of play in the NBA.
Yeah, it's really, really. I love the fact that we're now putting guys in the NBA. Landry Shamet here in Philadelphia, first-round draft pick of the Philadelphia 76ers. And I love the fact that we've got players now playing at the highest level, and they weren't top 100 players coming out of high school. Landry was maybe close. Ron Baker was a walk-on, and now they're in the NBA. And I've got assistant coaches. Very proud of the fact that I've got 5 former assistant coaches that are now running their own Division I head coaching program. So I hope Marcus is the next guy. And then we've got a couple of young players in the pipeline that could be after that. But the first one is Marcus McDuffie, a senior. Again, we've got to stay healthy. He's got a chance now to really showcase his talent and skills, his leadership ability, his commitment to doing things the right way on the court is unbelievable, and he's a great example for younger players. And hopefully some NBA executive is going to see that, what those other 3 have done in the NBA and why they're in the NBA, and say maybe this guy's next.
Real quick, this last question for the both of you. Coach, you mentioned the cities you got to experience traveling across the American Conference last year. What was the toughest place to play on the road in your opinion? I'll get to you next.
Toughest place to play on the road last year was probably at Cincinnati. It was a big game late in the year, and we were able to go in and beat Cincinnati. I think they had like a 36-game home court win streak, but it wasn't their home court. They were playing at Northern Kentucky, but man, they have a great following. Their fan base is very rabid, very tough, and we were able to squeak out a win.
Marcus, how about you? Would you fall in line with that?
I would fall in line with it, but I'm going to go at Houston. You know, that was very tough. You know, just the atmosphere and the grit, you know, and just, you know, them wanting to really beat us. You know, they actually did. You know, that's why I'd say it was tough because we took that L.
Well, talking to players and coaches around Media Day here, I hear Koch Arena is a pretty tough environment to play into. So best of luck to both of you this season as you continue your second year here in the American. Appreciate you stopping by.
Appreciate it.
All right, stay with us here at Basketball Media Day. After this break, we'll continue our breakdown of team analysis. Stay with us.
Oh, that ball is hit deep, left field, way back. That ball is gone. Double play ball potentially Schreitenthal's over to first. In time, double play, and that ends the game.
Welcome back here to Philadelphia at American Basketball Media Day. If you're just now joining us, alongside Mike O'Donnell, I'm Haley Outen. We're excited to have you with us as we continue to break down the teams that make up the American Conference. Mike, we haven't had a lot of time yet to talk about UConn outside of Jalen Adams, but Dan Hurley at the helm at UConn this year. Why is Dan Hurley equipped to step in and lead UConn moving forward?
Well, he's got, first of all, great recruiting ranks in the Northeast. You know, when he was at Rhode Island, took them to back-to-back NCAA tournaments. And Coach Hurley knows how to coach, knows how to recruit that region, and I think that's a perfect setup. It is absolutely a home run hire for UConn. He knows how to turn a program around. He likens it to building a culture from the ground up, similar to a startup company. And in his opening press conference, he told his team that they will never experience a tougher practice than the ones that he puts them through. But he's won at Rhode Island. He's won it everywhere he's been. He's built programs from the high school to the college level from the ground up. This is a bang-up home run hire for the UConn Huskies.
That New Jersey toughness is going to be shown in that UConn program this year. Moving on, we just had Wichita State on the set. Got to talk to Greg Marshall and Marcus McDuffie, but not as quite as much buzz as usual surrounding the Shockers this season without some of their bigger names returning. But why should teams not sleep on Wichita State?
For that very reason, what you just said, because there's no buzz, and honestly, I love that as a Wichita State fan, and I can guarantee you, Shocker fans, alumni, season ticket holders, they're going to love that too, because that's the way they like that. They like playing with that chip on their shoulder. They had that motto of play angry that kind of became infamous regarding the Wichita State team and Greg Marshall. But you have a great player in Marcus McDuffie, who was in the running for Missouri Valley Player of the Year 2 years ago. Last year he got hurt, so you haven't really seen in the American Conference. Most teams haven't really seen his full capacity. But there's really great talent. You can't discount a Greg Marshall team because they're going to play hard. They're going to be really good defensively. They're not going to turn the ball over, and they're going to find ways to win games. If Wichita State is in the NCAA tournament this year, I'm not going to be shocked because that's just the way that they play. They're going to play hard. They're not going to turn the ball over, and they might have one of the best incoming players in Ricky Torres as well.
Another team that will be playing with a chip on their shoulder this season is Tulsa, picked to finish near the bottom. But this is a team that has finished better than its preseason prediction in all 4 seasons in this conference. Why is that?
Frank Haith. He's a great coach, and like you said, they overachieved every single year since being in the American Conference from a media perception. I think Coach Haith knew where his teams needed to be every single year. He knows how they're still talented they are, and when you have Martin Zigbanu and Sterling Taplin, the staples of their team last year that overachieved, expect them to do it again this year. They won 19 games, and they returned a lot of firepower from last year's team. They do lose Junior Etu. That's a big blow to the Colton Hurricane, but they never beat themselves. You have to beat a Tulsa team, and that may sound kind of cliche, and really what that means is they don't turn the ball over, they rebound well, they're sound defensively, and they're a great free throw shooting team. And when you take those 4 aspects, you can play with anybody in the country. They have a really tough non-conference slate in that they have they'll have 3 or 4 opportunities to make some noise, add to that kind of non-conference strength of schedule moving into the conference tournament, because once we know when you get into the American, it is an absolute battle, but Tulsa seems to be equipped for that battle every single year.
Tulane is a team that we've seen take steps in the right direction the past few seasons under their head coach, Mike Dunleavy Sr., entering his 3rd year. What type of culture has Mike Dunleavy Sr. started to build at Tulane?
It's a pro culture. We have to remember, Coach Dunleavy is taking this Tulane opportunity to build a team, a program that will produce NBA players. That's what he wants to do. He's essentially going to, retire at Tulane. He'll coach Tulane for as long as he wants.
Not a bad spot.
No, it's great, but he has so much family there. They were pretty good last year. They made an 8-win improvement from the previous year last year. And they have a really great core, including Blake Paul down in the middle. And when you throw in some really great guard play, you lose Cameron Reynolds as a senior, who was actually just waived by the Sacramento Kings last night. And then you lose Melvin Frazier, who got drafted by the Orlando Magic. And they have 2 players that are potentially going to be in the NBA this year. You're building a pro culture. Coach Dunleavy's he's making waves down there with the Green Wave.
At ECU, new head coach Joel Dooley is not so new because he's back for a 2nd stint at ECU. He was at the helm previously from 1995 to 99. How can Dooley, as a new yet familiar face, help the Pirates take that next step as a basketball program?
Coach Dooley is a recruiting machine, and he's going to get players, specifically in the state of North Carolina, to come play at East Carolina. And he was really good at Florida Gulf Coast. They won the conference 3 times. They went to the NCAA tournament twice. And he also, remember, he was under the tutelage of Bill Self at Kansas for a long time. And he was really the main assistant at Kansas and one of their top recruiters. So he's going to recruit really well. He understands Greenville. He understands that culture, he understands the East Carolina environment. And I think he knows how good this program can be. I think this was a awesome hire, and under the radar hire for East Carolina. I think they did a great job trying to lure Coach Dooley back. He's in a position to grow. It's not going to happen overnight. I mean, they're a couple years away from really building this thing, but you're going to start seeing steps in the right direction this year for East Carolina.
USF is also a team looking to rebuild. Now, this is pretty interesting. 12 of USF's players either were not on the team last year or did not see any action last season on the court. How has head coach Brian Gregory approached this rebuild?
Step by step and very patiently. He has been given a great opportunity by South Florida's administration to grow a program from ground zero. They were really in a bad shape before Coach Gregory got there, and he's trying to create a culture of accountability, toughness, and physicality. And you saw that a little bit last year. I mean, this was a team that he is building it off of transfers, and that's really what he's doing, is he's trying to recruit some freshmen that are going to grow into seniors, but during that time, he's trying to grab transfers every single year to come in and play. And they had a great freshman in David Collins last year. He's only going to get better in his sophomore campaign. He was fantastic. He had a couple 20-point games last year for South Florida. And they're bringing in some transfers this year that you slowly need to build that culture and brand of consistently winning and showing up every night, because you can't walk into the locker room every single night and say, it was just a game, we didn't win, we'll come back and do the next one. That culture of accountability is something that Coach Gregory is trying to instill into this program, and it's going to take time, it's going to take patience, but I believe he will get them there.
We talk about head coaches and establishing cultures. I had a chance to sit down with first-year head coach from UConn, Dan Hurley, last evening here in Philadelphia. All right, Dan, you come from a family of coaches, specifically your father, a Hall of Fame head coach. How has he impacted your coaching career?
You know, in every way, I think just playing for my father kind of shows the impact of that playing for or being taught by a great coach or teacher can have on your life. You know, he just taught us the kind of like the hard skills that you need to be successful in life, the work ethic, you know, the attention to detail, you know, the commitment level, the competitiveness that it takes to be successful in any endeavor. So yeah, we got a lot of basketball lessons. He taught us a lot about shooting and dribbling and passing, but it were more, I think, just kind of life lessons and you know, kind of the habits that you need to have to be a successful person.
Are there any parts of the Bob Hurley style that are recognizable in the way that you run your program?
Yeah, I would say, you know, hopefully putting the heart into our job, you know, the caring about our players, you know, was the first thing that I learned from my father. You can't coach them and get the best out of them unless there's a relationship there, unless it's, you know, true love. So, you know, that's probably like the first and most important thing. And then I think on the court, you see you know, probably the defensive style. You know, he's known as a great man defensive coach, and we try to implement the same philosophy at the defensive end. And then us Hurleys, we have this fire and passion that also comes out on game night.
Obviously, your father, Bob, known for his time at St. Anthony's. How did your time there impact you as a person?
It was my first year out of college. I met my wife my last year, Andrea, at Seton Hall, and you know, I always felt like I knew the game better than I could play it. So, you know, I got done, and it was either go overseas and play or start my coaching career. And I got a chance to really do a 1-year internship at St. Anthony with my dad, and it was just a great chance to you know, to really get a better appreciation of the coaching side of things that you don't recognize as a player that go on in terms of the preparation and in terms of practice planning and taking a team through a long season. So, you know, that 1-year apprenticeship you know, paid huge dividends as I headed to college.
Last year, you were sitting with your team at URI watching the NCAA selection show, and you had a really unique and interesting moment watching your brother Bobby and his team get selected. In that moment, how proud were you?
So proud. You know, that's you know, Bob's been always like a hero of mine, a mentor, a best friend. So to know what goes into the job, you know, the highs and lows that you experienced during the season, the incredible highs that they had in the non-conference schedule where they were one of the hottest teams in the country, and then, you know, struggling at times through their conference season, and then getting what they finally deserved on that Sunday. And there was so much chatter about whether they were going to get in or not get in the tournament. Just to see that across the screen, just like the emotion just kind of, you know, kind of flooded out of me, and even on the bus ride over to the show, I was kind of emotional, you know, because us losing in the conference championship to Davidson, maybe, you know, they stole a bid, and it was kind of running through my mind, did we just cost brother Bob a bid? And but to see the name flash made it all better.
How much do each of the Hurley head coaches support one another in each of your endeavors?
Yeah, I mean, we talk, you know, I'd say if not every day, you know, 5 days a week, 6 days a week in season. Off season, when it's not quite as stressful, when we don't need to lean on each other as much, you know, it might be 2 or 3 times a week, but you know, we're kind of each other's coaching tree. You know, I came into the college ranks, you know, from high school. Bob came in kind of from, you know, finished up in the horse racing business and looking for an opportunity to get into coaching. So we kind of came in a non-traditional way, and we're each other's support system and coaching tree at the college level.
As you get ready for your first season playing in the American Conference, what has been your perception from the outside in terms of the competitiveness of this league?
You know, tremendous conference. We had a chance at URI to play against SMU and Houston and Temple. So we know how good the league is. You have some perennial NCAA tournament programs like Cincinnati and Wichita State, who have been as good as anybody in college basketball the last couple of years. Then you have the Houstons, the SMUs, the Temples that are consistent NCAA tournament caliber programs. And then obviously you have us in Memphis, who, you know, historically are top 10, top 15 programs in the country that are going through a little bit of a rebuild right now. But, you know, I think that when you've got the best version of UConn, the best version of Memphis, you know, I think the American's one of the best basketball conferences in the country, and a conference that legitimately could be a 5 or 6 bid league every single year.
All right, Coach. Well, welcome to the conference, and we wish you the best of luck in year 1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great conversation last night with UConn head coach Dan Hurley. You know, while he's New Jersey through and through, he really does love New England. And in fact, he even had some great restaurant recommendations if you're ever in the Connecticut area. But moving on, Mike actually had a chance to talk to one of the top guards in this conference last night who's looking to go out on a high note in his senior season, and that's UConn guard Jalen Adams.
Hey guys, got Jalen Adams here for UConn, senior point guard, one of the best point guards in the conference and the country now. Came back for your senior year, big decision coming off last year. Obviously, you have a talent where you know you want to play at the next level. Talk about the decision on why you came back to UConn.
I think it was the right decision for me to come back and just kind of build history. I didn't want to go out and into the draft unready, so I think Coach Hurley was the right guy for me to improve my skills, and then I think just to end my chapter the right way, which is winning.
So like I said, you got a new coach. Coach Hurley came from Rhode Island, back-to-back NCAA tournaments. He brings kind of that toughness and physical and aggressive mentality. I mean, what have practices been like with Coach Hurley?
They're very intense. Sometimes you feel like they're like 4 hours long, but they're really only like 2 hours and a half. But they're just so intense, and you have to lock in on every detail. Every drill is right after one another. So it's just a high-paced, intense environment when he's around.
On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard have practice been?
10.
10? 10, okay. So you got senior year, got a lot of talent, especially in the backcourt. What can we expect from the UConn Huskies this year?
I think a very fast-paced team who loves to get up and down and play above the rim. This year I think it's going to be a lot more exciting to watch, most definitely.
Jalen Adams, one of the best scoring point guards in the country, senior for UConn.
Pretty much every day.
We're now joined here on the set by the SMU crew, and that's head coach Tim Jankovic as well as Jure Foster. Thank you both for stopping by. And, you know, we promised we were going to hit you with the hard questions here today.
And I promise I'll leave if they're too hard. I promise.
Right. Coach, we'll start off by putting you on the spot. Jure, the only returning player at SMU with more than one season under his belt. How vital is his role going to be this season when it comes to the veteran experience that he brings to the team?
Okay, well, you just scared me because I don't know that I actually realized that. I knew that he is our by far most experienced player, and that is a scary thing that you say that we only really have one guy with a lot of experience coming back. But thankfully it is him. One of the great players that I've ever had the pleasure of coaching, and one of the greatest people that I've ever had the pleasure of coaching. A tremendous leader, competitor, all those things. So if you're just going to have one guy to hang your hat on, I would hang it on him.
You know my deep, inappropriate love for positionless basketball, right? And I love watching your teams play, but got a lot of new faces this year. And I mean, so there's been an adapt to the players, or has it been vice versa for you guys?
Well, anytime. You know, college basketball, if you ask any coach, one of the best things you can have is a whole bunch of returning players, okay? I mean, you just want a lot of guys that have been through your system. Unfortunately, we've not been afforded that over the last 3 years because of our probation and limited numbers. So we're always in a halfway starting over mode at our place the last 3 years. And that's always difficult because you start at a square one and people are at a lot different levels, but you know, we work hard to try to work through that. We try to work hard at as quickly as we can getting guys acclimated to our culture, to our language, to major college basketball, all those things. And I think the main thing you need is great leadership from your returning players, or you got no shot.
Jure, 5 different players on last year's team averaged at least 10 points per game. We talk about positionless basketball, but what goes into the mindset as a team to buy into that style?
Number one, it comes with the leader and myself. I feel like I'm in a position where I can help this team and prove to these guys that I'm a leader. And these guys listen to me and they trust me. So if I go out there and do the things that I know what I'm supposed to do, they're just going to follow. So having a positionless team, I feel like everybody has an opportunity to score the basketball. And as long as you space the floor and you have that chemistry within the team, I feel like that we have off the court, we can just bring that onto the court. We're just a great team and we have a lot of threats. So I feel like if we just share the ball as much as possible and just buy into what we do, I feel like we'll have a great year.
You got your players already talking about spacing and everything, man. You're already set up, ready to go.
Right.
But so the Mustang family really hadn't seen kind of full force for you right now. Came off of injury last year, limited in that time. How's the summer training been going? How are you feeling, and what can we expect from Troy Foster this year?
Number one, I want to say thank you to my coaches and the staff and my teammates. They've helped me so much in this injury process and rehab. And without them, it's hard to push every day. So going in the gym and working hard with them every day is something that I look forward to. And with me personally and my injury, it's going well. It's going great. It's going on the pace that it's supposed to. The thing is, the hardest thing is patience, because you want to get out there. It's been almost like 270 days since I played a basketball game, so every day is hard, but I can say that I get better every day. So until it hits the point where I'm 100%, it's just trying to get to that point every day.
I was trying to find this tweet on my phone, but I was unsuccessful. I saw that you tweeted out, I believe it was last night, with Alicia Froling from the women's side. You both wear the number 10. I won't ask you who wears the number better, but both battling back from injury. What did that tweet say, and why are you so fueled up for this last season?
The tweet said it wasn't a coincidence that we're the same number, but the process is tough, but we're going to come out 10 times stronger. And I really take this number very personally. It's my mom and myself, our birthday together. We have the same birthday, so I take this number and I use it every day as motivation. And with Alicia, with what she's going through, and we both having injuries, it's not a coincidence that we had the same number. So we kind of just tied together and used each other's strength. When I was down, she picked me up, and when she was down, I picked her up. So it was a hand-in-hand relationship, and we just, try to get better every day.
So did you two spend a lot of time together during that rehab process in the training room? How do you kind of,
weight room.
Yeah, how do you guys kind of, continue to pick each other up throughout the course of the process? Because that can be, put people down. It can be very frustrating. How did you keep each other up?
Well, I can say we're both at a point where we're older, we're leaders, and a lot of people are looking up to us. So I feel like that we have to keep each other on a certain platform, on a certain pedestal. So whenever she sees me down, not having a good day, like I said, she makes sure that I'm trying to smile or just trying to get through the day, and I do it vice versa, And going in the training room every day is devastating, just not being on the court, not doing what you love. But she tried to reinforce to me that it's coming. Just be patient, and the light is at the end of the tunnel. You just have to run your course.
Dre's going to take my job one day. Question.
Yeah.
You did talk about experience and the importance of that, and you have Jamal McMurray, Jimmy Witt, two of the most talented guards in the conference. What are your expectations for those guys this year?
They're high. They're very high, and I just want to speak real quickly. There are injuries, and all injuries are awful, and athletes hate them. But then, one of the kings of injuries is ACL, because it's a mountain. I actually experienced it many years ago, so I understand what he's going through. It's an incredible fight, psychologically, emotionally, obviously physically, but, to come back from those injuries is amazing. But to your point, to your question, we need Jimmy and Jamal to have great years. Simple as that. And they're capable. They're very capable. Jimmy's much improved. Very, very proud of Jimmy's improvement. Jamal has cut in more than I've ever seen him. Obviously a really talented scorer. And he's proven that since day one in our conference. But they need to have big years. Dre needs to have a big year. And if everybody does have a big year, then I think we can have some really, really good times together. But they will need to all perform at a high level.
Going back to Dre for a second, because I think your story is really interesting. You talk about the fight, the toughness, the battle, and your leadership role this year. How has fighting through this injury, what exactly has it made you tougher?
I feel like I've grown 3 years in less than a year. I'm 21 years old, but I feel like I'm 24, just off mentally having to prepare your mind for every day. It's a journey, like Coach said. We've been through it, but you learn about yourself every day. You learn things that you're not supposed to do, what you're supposed to do. You spend a lot of time off the court. That's the thing. You learn about yourself. You learn about your teammates. You learn about the world. It's just bigger than basketball. So I've had a lot of time to think about a lot of things that I want to do, a lot of things that I can do with the platform that I'm on. And I feel like every day, if I just hold myself into a certain level, I feel like a lot of people are looking at me and watching me. So I just want this all to turn out well. And I feel like I'm just putting my all into it, because this is all I have, and I'm just going to keep pushing forward until it's over.
Well, if you can't root for that, I don't know what you can root for.
That's right.
And very inspiring story. Best of luck to you and your team this season. Thanks for stopping by the set here at Media Day. Jure, I'm sure a guy with NBA aspirations on his mind, and in fact, for the first time in conference history, the American had 2 NBA first-round draft picks and set a new league record with 4 selections overall. There you see him, one of his teammates, Shake Milton, but Wichita State guard Landry Shamet, who's just down the road in Philadelphia. Mike, how will the Shockers fill the void of Landry Shamet's presence?
Well, it doesn't come with just one player. You know, it's got to be it's a team effort, and we've talked about this before. You don't just fill it with one individual player. It's going to be a team effort. Wichita State does have Ricky Torres as a junior college transfer who actually could be one of the top incoming players in the American Conference. Not many people are talking about. We talk a lot about freshmen, but he's a junior college player that is really good, can absolutely light it up. One of the top scorers in junior college in all of last year. Pretty cool, though, that Landry Shamet and Shake Milton are both playing for Philly. That's awesome to see.
They were both here in Philadelphia last night, and we'll have that interview for you on the American Digital Network just before the season starts. But Cincinnati's Jacob Evans, he joined Shamet in the first round. How do you expect Evans to fit into the pro game? How
lucky is Jacob Evans? He gets to play for the Golden State Warriors, who might win the next 10 NBA championships, and he's going to have an opportunity to learn from Kevin Durant. That's a big deal. You know, as a wing player in the NBA where they're looking for players exactly like Jacob Evans, we call them 3-and-D. They're really good three-point shooters, and they're great athletes who are also really, really capable defenders of guarding multiple positions. And he fits that offense really well, and he's just going to have an opportunity to learn from the best team in the NBA and one of the best teams of all time, and a great coach in Steve Kerr as well. A pretty awesome atmosphere that Jacob Evans gets to learn, grow, and develop his game in.
Mike, you mentioned Tulane having to replace Melvin Frazier, and other than the fact that I know he made your all-hair team last year, that was fantastic.
That's right.
Frazier is a player that came out of the woodwork last season. Why was he able to make that jump and catch the attention of NBA scouts?
Fits the NBA style perfectly. He's an absolute freak athlete who can shoot the three, but his defense and length are what really separate him. His ability to guard multiple positions is everything. That's why he's going to see playing time with the Magic. That's why a lot of teams are going to be, you know, whenever he's a free agent, they're going to go after him because he can score, he can get to the rim, he's a great athlete, that's great. But his ability to guard multiple positions is everything. That's what he did at Tulane. He was one of the best two-way players in the conference last year. That's why he got drafted. Big-time athlete. Saw him play in Las Vegas in Summer League this past summer, and he was dynamic, and he's going to be really good for the Magic.
Student athletes from this conference going on to play in the NBA, just one of the many accomplishments so far in this young history of the American. We're now joined here on the set by the commissioner of the conference, Mike Oresco. Mike, great to see you. Always a great event here in Philadelphia. And, you know, we see the banners, the 5-year anniversary celebration, but as we head into year 6, how proud are you of what this league has accomplished up to this point?
Well, great to be with you, Haley and Mike. I think this league is on fire. You know, we've had a tremendous football season so far, and this day is devoted to basketball, and I couldn't be more excited about this league and our women's basketball. We have the crown jewel in UConn, but we also have a tremendous women's basketball program. I think we're going to be one of the best conferences in the country. It may not be ready-made. It may not happen immediately. You know, there has to be some rebuilding at UConn and Memphis and Wichita State and a few places. But within a year or two, I think we're going to be among the top 2 or 3 or 4 best conferences in the entire country.
Bouncing off one of those teams you just mentioned, last year you've had an opportunity to absorb everything. How impactful and great was it for you in the American Conference to add Wichita State into the program?
Yeah, you can't overstate it, Mike, the importance of Wichita State. And they also came in as great partners for the league. They were great teammates. They were terrific. Everything about the transition was smooth. So I was very thrilled, and they had a good season. In fact, we thought they might be a Final Four team. It didn't quite happen for them last year, but you know, the fan enthusiasm. I was out there for the Cincinnati game at the end of the season, and it wasn't just the fan enthusiasm, it was the graciousness, even after they lost. You know, everybody I saw as I was walking out said, boy, that was a great Cincinnati team. They really deserved to win. You know, it was a great game. So you really like to see fans who have that kind of class. But no, the league, you know, you talked about the league a minute ago. I just couldn't be happier. You know, we were, it's funny, you know, 6 years ago we were in real trouble. There's no question. It's almost as though we were some kind of reorganization because we had to, you know, get back on our feet after all that realignment. And I couldn't be prouder of what the schools have done. And in basketball, you know, we got out of the gate pretty quickly, and we won the national championship. We had 5 teams in the Final Four. And I must confess, our basketball hasn't been at the level I wanted it to be. But we had good teams along the way. But now, when you have programs with the venerability of UConn and Memphis that have coaches like they do now, and every coach in this league, Joe Dooley and, you know, obviously Mike Dunleavy and you know, Brian Gregory, those programs were lower tier programs in our league that are now going to be, they've got tremendous coaching. The balance in this league is right there. I mean, those programs are going to be on the move, and I'm just happy about where we are.
The league is gaining momentum in basketball. How important is success in basketball to the league's power narrative?
I think it's really important. You know, it's funny, so much emphasis on football, as you know, Haley, and I guess, you know, it does drive the revenue you get in TV and other things. It's you know, I guess arguably the second most popular sport in the country when you look at the ratings for the games and the playoff. But college basketball is part of our fabric also. Those are the 2 most important sports, basketball and football. And we love our Olympic sports. We've got great baseball. You know, we have great track and field. We have great women's volleyball. We have terrific sports all around. We have lacrosse. Now we have a women's lacrosse league. We're proud of all our athletes, but you know, the football and basketball really drive things. But it was really important to me to be good in basketball because we've had some unexpected success, I guess, in football when you look over the last 5 or 6 years. But basketball is just part of our heritage. It's the, you know, I grew up, you know, and I must confess, I grew up as a UConn fan when I was 5 or 6 years old in the old Yankee Conference. I'm older than you think, and so, you know, I remember those days, and you know, I have to be neutral now, and I'm just pleased about how the league has shaped up. I just, it's going to be so dynamic. It's going to be so good. We've been waiting for this. You want to be good in both sports, and of course our women's basketball with UConn is our crown jewel, and with teams that have all been in the postseason over the last few years. Yeah, with Jose and what he's done at USF. But we've also had a lot of our women's teams in the postseason. That maybe goes unnoticed sometimes because UConn can be, you know, can kind of, you know, the attention, for, rightly so, they're one of the great programs of all time. You know, it sort of crowds out sometimes some of the other achievements, but the point is we've got a good women's league as well, but all those things are very important to the success of this league.
Mike, before we let you go, and maybe this speaks to the level of basketball this conference is playing, but in your opening remarks, you mentioned the partnership with the Air Force Reserve for this year's men's basketball championship. How important is it to have a title sponsor for one of our best championships of the year? Well, it's great, and to have one like Air Force Reserve, such a prestigious partner, and what they mean to the country is fantastic. But I would give credit to Learfield. You know, obviously they are our marketing partner, and they do a great job. But also, I think it speaks to the heightened profile of the conference to have a title sponsor like that. And this is, I think, is the earliest we've had one. You know, in the early years, you know, we struggled, but you know, think about it. Our championship last year was on CBS, and we provided great games, and it was great to see my old colleagues at CBS. And then we're back on ESPN, and look what ESPN does for us. You know, the incredible exposure they've given us over the years. That's really built our brand. But you know, you have to have the teams doing what they're doing in order for that to happen. So give credit to our coaches, give credit to our players. Also, I'm proud of the fact that, you know, we've had good student athletes who've contributed to their communities. They're good students. We've had, you know, a few years ago, Temple had a complete perfect graduation rate for all their seniors in college football, and I believe in college basketball was pretty close to that. So I'm really pleased with what we've done here, but I give all the credit to the administrators who've hired those coaches and who paid them, you know, competitive salaries, and of course, obviously we have to, you know, recruit maybe a little differently, but we do it the right way. And again, I think the future's bright. I'm really pleased. I'm just so excited that basketball, I think, is finally where I always thought this conference would be. Because football, again, we got there a little faster than we expected,
And basketball, the potential's always been enormous.
Certainly an exciting season ahead for the American, all ending in Memphis this year. Thanks to the commissioner for stopping by our set this morning, and we'll talk to you here as the season goes on. Thank you.
Thank you, Haley, and a shout out for Memphis. We had a great tournament there, our inaugural one, and we're going back, and with the excitement with Penny Hardaway, should be terrific. Thank you. Thanks again, Mike, and thank you, Haley.
It's going to be a great week in Memphis, no question, and we now welcome Andy Katz on the side.
Just slid in.
Just slid in here on the other side. Andy's been hosting roundtable discussions with the coaches all morning long on Twitter. Hopefully you've had a chance to tune into some of that. And
we got one more coming up.
One more coming up. Yep. All right, on the women's side.
On the men's side.
On the men's side.
Yes, we're sandwiching this.
Going.
Yes,
okay.
we got one more men's, and then we'll do the women
Okay,
after.
you have one more chance then to get over for the men's side. We've been so locked in on what we're doing here. Andy, but so far 2 roundtables in. What has been your biggest takeaway from these discussions up to this point?
Well, I'll tell you, first of all, that this league is deep. You know, I agree with UCF and Cincinnati at the top. I think you have to look over the last couple of years that teams that have been successful in the tournament have been loaded with upperclassmen. North Carolina, Gonzaga, Villanova, obviously, Michigan, and UCF has that. Now we'll see if they can actually carry it through, but they've got that. Cincinnati always tends to be old in some form, shuffling different guys, but they've got that. And I think the excitement of Houston being able to maybe be back-to-back in the tournament, first time since the early 80s. Memphis with Penny Hardaway, he doesn't hide that he thinks he's got a team that can compete at the top. And then I think we've got a collection from 5 to 9 that I really think you can make arguments all of, you know, in my group. I'm curious what you think here. I've got UConn, Temple, Tulsa, SMU, and Wichita, and we're going to talk to Greg Marshall coming up. I feel weird just putting them lower, but it's based on who's coming back. But I just know I'm going to be wrong because they can't finish that low. And, you know, in the bottom part, I mean, and we're going to talk to Joe Dooley, so I'll hear what he has to say, but you know, Brian Gregory and Mike Dunleavy at USF and Tulane, they feel really good in their direction they're going. And so, you know, really, you could say 5 to 11, but definitely 5 to 9. I think it's going to be complete shuffling with that group.
Yeah, I think 2 things there. First of all, you know,
like
how am I crazy? I know. I mean, tell me I'm not crazy. I can't pick against Wichita State at that level, right? You know, just you feel like that culture and the way the style of play that they're going to be fine. But it's kind of get the sense of the winning league team could have 12 wins, and the team in 8th place could have 8 conference wins.
Right.
It's that kind of jumbled up in the middle. I think from a parity standpoint, that's why for the American Conference to take care of business in the non-conference, it's a huge deal. And there's plenty of teams that are going to be able to make some noise in that, but that non-conference slate, you know, RIP to the RPI, right? It's now the NCAA net, but those non-conference games before January hits, that's a big deal because it's going to be a war come conference season.
Well, and I thought there was a very interesting point made, and I want to say it was by, I'm just trying to think who was saying this. It might have been Mike Dunleavy, but yeah, actually it was Dunleavy, about how he was savvy enough that when they weren't good, how that was hurting, you know, Cincinnati or whomever at the top, and the sense of being sort of all in, because by the time you get to the league play, if you've taken care of your business, the non-conference, even if you take on some water and lose some games, the net, power rating, wherever we're going to call it, it's going to be still pretty good, so that if you lose at a Tulane, at an SMU, it's not a bad loss.
Right.
And that's what the league has to do in November and December.
Andy, before we let you go back to host your final roundtable of the day, you've been making predictions on this conference for quite some time now. Now the season's finally here, but you talked about it, parity, 4 teams receiving first place votes. If you had to circle a team on your calendar to kind of track on this year, who has the biggest question mark attached to it?
Well, I think it's Wichita. I think they're the biggest question mark, but I think we're going to be wrong, which is fine.
At least you can admit
yes.
it, right?
You know, the 2 other teams I would track are Tulsa. Frank Haith told me this morning, and you know, we know he's not feeling well, but he thinks this is his best team there. And they have exceeded their projection every year under Frank Haith. And the other one is UConn. You know, you talk about not betting against Greg Marshall. I would do the same with Dan Hurley. Jalen Adams could go down as the most prolific scorer in this league, surpassing Rob Gray. And you know, so there is talent there, and he usually gets the most out of the talent. So I wouldn't be surprised if UConn finishes higher than projected as well.
A lot of question marks heading into what can be a very exciting season across the American. We're going to let Andy head back to his final roundtable discussion of the day. Make sure to head over to Twitter at American_comp to catch that. And on behalf of Mike O'Donnell and myself, it's been great having you here with us this morning. We're going to be back here at 11:20 a.m. for our women's show. So make sure to head back to Facebook for that one. We're excited. We're looking forward to the season ahead. Thanks for tuning in and starting your morning with us here from Philadelphia.